5 races down and 3 to go. We're here in the darkness of Bathurst at the mountain, and Burst Esport can win the championship here today if things go their way, and obviously we'll get you through those connotations as we get towards the 3 hours here at Mount Panorama for the 3 hours of Bathurst for the 6th race of the GT3 Endurance Series. I'm Cameron Roger, and today joining me is Hugo Barrow. And Hugo, this darkness is certainly going to be something that the drivers have to get used to a little bit, as we don't always race here under the darkness.
Yeah, definitely. We're starting relatively early in terms of in-game time. I believe it's 6 a.m. for the sim anyway. But despite that, the track temperature is still 29 degrees, so it's going to be a lot more of a visual thing. But as the sun begins to rise here, as we start moving into the later hours, I do believe that will continue warming up. So we'll see how that all plays out. But with this darkness, it's a new element that we don't see an awful lot in the GT3 races. They are only 3 hours, so that's going to be interesting to see how the different drivers handle it. And after such a close qualifying, this first few laps are going to be very interesting, especially with such a unique nature that Bathurst has.
Yeah, it's really, really tight and twisty, especially when you get to the top of the mountain, and seeing it in this darkness in the first probably about hour of the race, it's going to be utterly incredible to see. And it's obviously a sight that you don't normally see, but obviously the real life 12 hours of Bathurst does this, starting early in the morning. And it's good to see that Sean Jacobs has brought it along. But as we mentioned, Burst Esport leading the way in the championship. They have won, I believe, all but one race so far this season. They've been doing very good in the championship, as you see here, leading the way. And if they outscore Evolution by only 16 points today, then they will be crowned the champions with still 2 races left to go. So yeah, they've had a great season. Can't really say anything against them. They've had a brilliant driver lineup, and that is certainly something that we need to look out for. But that battle just behind them has been really close. As you can see, Evolution Motorsports very close with Go Team Racing and the 2 Knight of Velux cars as well. So I think it's going to be a good fight here at Bathurst.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of pressure on Evolution to try and keep up with Burst and make sure they don't get away with the championship so early. You can see the rest of the championship as well, but with it being so close, I also think between Evolution and Knight of Velux, that's going to be a really interesting one to watch out for. The 2 Knight of Velux cars qualifying quite well, 2nd and 3rd, were just about pipped to the pole by David Mroszek in that Burst Esports Corvette. But this is going to be a really interesting battle to watch it develop and see what effect it has on the overall race. You can see the Flying Goat, currently 26th, the sole Mercedes GT3 car on the grid. But 27 cars, it looks like, will be taking part this evening. So we'll see how that all plays out. It's going to be very narrow. The battles are going to be difficult. And there have been warnings. They're going to have to be careful around each other, especially when we get to the stage of the race where we're going to start to see lapped cars, because that is going to be very risky, especially at the top of the hill here, of course, Mount Panorama. And you've got that really narrow section, very flowing. It's almost like a roller coaster, especially with the downhill section. So we'll see how that all plays out. But 23 turns as well around this circuit. It's going to take a lot of concentration from these drivers to avoid making mistakes, because it seems to me that staying out of the pit lane will garner a lot of time today.
And you see here, 27th of March, 3 hours of Bathurst, and then the 2 remaining races of the season are the 3 hours of Suzuka and then the 3 hours of Spa-Francorchamps as well in May, in a couple of months' time. So there's still a total of 9 hours racing to sort out your place in the championship. But obviously for Burst Esport, they have the luxury of having a number of attempts at taking this title, because obviously if they don't today, then they will pretty much get that by default in Suzuka, barring any major issues in the next couple of races. So maybe they're not going to be trying their absolute hardest, but I'm sure they're going to be putting up a good fight to see what they can do to try and keep up this record, because as mentioned, they've only failed to win in one of the first 5 races. They're going to want to keep that score sheet up. They're going to want to try and do the absolute best that they can, despite the trials and tribulations that this track is going to bring. And Hugo, I think I'm going to say that we're going to see at least at least 10 cars putting it in the wall today because it's that sort of track.
Yeah, and what's so difficult is that when a car hits the wall, it can very easily block up the track, and it is very difficult sometimes to avoid them because you almost occasionally won't be able to anticipate them. So that's why they're going to have to be so careful on these opening laps, because the cars are going to be really close together. 27 cars going around here. It's going to be a bit of a traffic jam around the hill the first few times around. But I think 10 cars in the barrier is definitely a realistic guess, just because of the difficulty of the circuit. We're going to have the evolving track with temperatures. They'll be changing a lot as we move into daylight. However, still 29 degrees. That will change. We'll have different drivers coming in and out, and we will have them. And you can see there just how narrow it is. The car goes around there, can end up blocking the track, or maybe it decides to rejoin unannounced. As well as that, we're going to have the cars that are being lapped when we get to that stage in the race. They've been told not to make any unpredictable movements, because around this track especially, that's when accidents happen. So an element of patience is going to have to emerge on both halves, both on those overlapping and those being overlapped. So we'll see the result of that. And we've got a relatively long straight here along the Conrod Straight, leading into the heavy braking zone of the chase. That chicane just towards the end of the lap. It's a bit narrow. It's only really wide enough for two, and you've got to be careful in that right-hand kink when you're running side by side. But I do believe that's where we're going to see a few overtakes made here tonight. So we'll see what the result of that is, because it does lead into a secondary braking zone, the Murray's Corner. That's turn 23, which leads on to the relatively short pit straight in comparison to the other straights around this track. That could be an opportunity to try and regain those positions that you lose. So we'll see what the result of that is. But yeah, 10 cars in the barrier, I think that is definitely a likelihood.
Yeah, but fortunately, at certain points of the track, it does open up just a little bit, especially around sort of the pit area. And as you mentioned, the chicane at the end of the Conrod Straight, that is going to be the prime overtaking opportunity. There's a huge straight coming all the way downhill, then up over the hill again. So that's really going to be the main place, and setting your wing angle is going to be very important. Obviously, with the GT3 cars, you generally want to run a slightly lower rear wing anyway for the straight line speed, but then you want that stability at the top of the mountain. So maybe you then want to put the wing up a little bit, but then again, that's just going to make you slower in a straight line. So we got the drivers gridding up now. So let's go through the grid. So David Mojek has got the pole position for Burst Esports, followed by Rory McDuff of Cetres, Nita Velix, and the other Nita Velix there in third place, with Wanako in fourth. Go Team Racing in fifth there, followed by One Move Esports in sixth, and Speedmite in seventh, with Evolution only down in eighth place. That is quite crucial for the championship, as they obviously need to outscore Burst here to avoid defeat. Undercover Sim Racing, Speedy Mite Racing, Blackbirds with a good performance there in 11th, and also Volante. Those two teams have struggled a little bit so far this season. Pescara a bit further down than we would normally expect them, but Joy Racing have enjoyed the little BOP boost that the Bentley got a couple of weeks ago. And then we got Core Team Racing and another Speedy Mite there, rounding out the top 16. Omicron, followed by Revo, Satellite Racing, Seawolf, Net Race, and one of the other many core teams. They got 3 cars in this championship. Then we have the Flying Goat with the Mercedes getting up there just a little bit, followed by Pushrod Racing, the other core team, and Trojan Donut Automotive in 24th place. And then rounding up the grid, we have Scuderia Mascala, who are a little bit further down. I'll be a bit disappointed with that, as well as Caspian Motorsport, and then Scuderia Bazelia starting from the back of the field in the Callaway Corvette. So 27 cars here going around Bathurst, and I think that's certainly enough cars to cause a little bit of carnage, but hopefully they all remember that this is a 3-hour race and it is not all won on the first lap.
Certainly not, and you can see them now going through their formation now, and this just gives us a little bit of a scope before we get started of what it's going to look like for these drivers. Of course, they're currently limited in speed in the formation. That they'll be trying to get a little bit of warmth into their tyres, maybe make sure their brakes are adequate for turn 1, because going wide out of Hell Corner, that is going to be disastrous. Also, going too deep into Hell Corner, if you're trying to stick it up the inside of someone as well, can end very poorly. At least there's a little bit of runoff on the exit there. one of the few places on the track where there are any exit, is where there is any runoff. We've also got here Speedy Mike Racing, Cameron Sansano at the wheel of that McLaren. Quite the striking yellow livery. You can also see the headlights now. A decent amount of lighting. They should be able to see roughly where they're going and see where the other cars are as well. It's going to take an element of concentration, as I said earlier, with these drivers to avoid getting into any unnecessary incidents, because of course it's in everyone's interest not to crash into each other. So we'll see what they do with regards to that. With 27 cars though, not as busy as always, but around this track I think we're going to feel it a little bit more, especially as you can see just how narrow it is. There really only is one line through many parts of this track, and into that final hairpin essentially, which we're just coming up to now, the dipper. You've got to be careful because you don't want to understeer too much, but you also want to carry enough speed through here to maximize the exit. You can see it drops a lot, so understeer is very possible, because then it is followed by just an absolutely enormous straight, the Conrod straight, which we were just discussing earlier. And you can see it widens out a little bit, which gives a bit of an opportunity to try and go side by side. So that's what the drivers will be looking to do to try and gain positions around this circuit. But you can see where the cars have no lights, it is very dark. And now we've also got the penalties to deal with. We've got Leon Bock. He will have a penalty, currently starting in 8th place. It's not going to be ideal for him because it's going to be even harder to make up positions here than it would have been at Indianapolis. Of course, that much wider track, a lot easier to overtake. You can also see Nick De Silva as well, and we'll have a quick look at those, as that has a very big impact on the races of these drivers.
Yeah, there's only a few penalties from Indianapolis 4 weeks ago, so fortunately not too many incidents, and that one for Leon Bock, as you say, down in 8th place. That's bad enough if they want to challenge Bathurst Esports for the championship, but also having a penalty, that's just going to make it even harder, because that has to be served within the first few laps of the race, which is all the cars are really close together still, and then you're going to obviously lose out a lot more. You can actually see that when you've got a car behind you, it sort of lights up the road even more, so it can actually be quite helpful when a car's following you, because then you get double the headlights. But now we come to the final corner, and for the 3 hours of Bathurst, this could be a championship winning race for David Mrocic and his team. But let's see what they do. When they come out to the final corner, they get to the start finish line and they go green for 3 hours here. And we are now coming down to turn number 1. Let's see if they all make it through this corner. It's called Hell Corner for a reason. You often see drivers going off there, but it seems like the leaders at least are getting through there nicely, which is a good start, because obviously we don't want to see too many crashes when it is a 3-hour race.
Yeah, and it looks like we've got some relatively close drivers. I noticed undercover already under a little bit of pressure from Leon Bock. That's Bentley against the BMW, but David Mrocic getting away quite easily. Of course, with the starting procedure, makes it a little bit more difficult to make those positions at the start, but it's going to be about holding that first position right now for the Bathurst Esports team. We've got Rory McDuff for the first Cetra Nita Velix car, then Christian Michel behind in the 3rd place Nita Velix from McLaren. You can see as they head through the top parts of the circuit around Skyline, and they're moving towards the S's now. They're going to have to be careful, and it does look like Christian Michel dropping back a little bit. However, Rory McDuff is sticking quite close to the back of David Mrocic for that lead, but it's going to be quite difficult for him to try and take that position quite yet. You can see still a relatively big gap, a little bit too big to take at this point in time. So quite an uneventful start to the race, but I suppose that's what these drivers are going to be wanting for the next 3 hours.
Yeah, it certainly is, especially when it's in the darkness. It just makes this track even harder. And despite there being these really long straights here at Bathurst, that top part of the mountain is just so difficult. If you slightly miss an apex, or if you hit a curb too much, you're going to be going into the wall, and that will not be a good time. As we now see Remco Major, he's into 8th place, so he's got past Leon Bock on the first lap at some point. So Leon Bock's already gone down to that 9th place, and that's before the drive-through penalty that he's going to have to serve in the next couple of laps. And Remco had a really good race last time out in Indianapolis. If you remember, he was all over the back. I believe it was Michi Hoyer who started the Bathurst Esports car, and it seems that Leon Bock has decided to take his penalty straight away. He is not messing around, as David Mrocic sets the fast lap, as you would expect being the first car. This is going to be a painful drive-through for Leon Bott, as this is also the championship just slipping away from them. Obviously, they probably didn't think that it was overly possible anyway, but at least it would have been something they would have liked to try and achieve with the final 3 races. But now Remco Mule gets to the inside of Cameron Sansano, coming down the straight all the way up to the second corner, and this is going to be such an important braking zone, and we know the Bentley is so good on the brakes, and there he gets position there up into 7th place. We need to see if Remco can report some similar speeds as he did in Indianapolis a few weeks ago.
Yeah, you just saw there that the Bentley, a decent amount of pace, and Remco Major, since that BOP update just before Indianapolis, he's been really happy in that Bentley, already up into 7th place. It looks like he might try and continue his charge. Up ahead, he's got Ludovic Ferrawi for the One Move Esports team, and right now you can see he's already beginning to pull away from Cameron Sansano. And we'll watch a replay right now. This is Gabriel Bonacina, and it looks like just not on the brakes enough there. He's gone straight on at the chase, and that's going to cost an awful lot of time. Luckily, there's a lot of gravel there, though, and it doesn't seem that he's hit the barrier.
Yeah, that was very close to a huge accident, because obviously if he smashed into the back of that car, that would not have been nice. But fortunately, that is the one part of the track that does actually have some runoff, and it's obviously needed when you enter that corner pretty much close enough to 300 k's an hour, at least with some slipstream. You're getting really proper good speed there in these GT3 cars, as we now see Donut Prodan go to the inside of Ollie McGowan for Speedy Mike Racing, but as soon as he pulled out, he seems to lose the slipstream just a little bit, so he's going to have to pull back in and try and do it under the brakes, but Ollie's good on the brakes there, manages to hold on for that 9th position. So that's pretty good with the 2 Speedy Mites there in 8th and 9th. They've had some up and down races so far this season. It's good to see them. Obviously, team owner Sean Jacobs, being an Aussie himself, he likes this part of the world.
Yeah, most definitely. This is his home race after all, and right now it does look like some pretty quick lap times being put in so far. A couple of drivers being told off as well, not for having their headlights on, as that is quite important. You can see actually that's the 2nd place. Nita Velix, Rory McDuff doesn't seem to have his headlights on, and he's just been told off for that. However, we could see a battle between the 2 Speedy Mike cars, although Nick De Silva won't be one of them, currently serving a drive-through penalty. He's going to come out just in front of it, look like a BMW there. Now we've got Donat Prodan. He's behind Ollie McGowan, who we're riding on board with right now. That gap 0.3 of a second, and you can see getting really quite close as we head through this first part, the uphill section of the track, through Griffin's Mount right now. Really piling on the pressure. You can see just how much closer he is to Ollie McGowan than Ollie McGowan is to Cameron Sansano in that P8 Speedy Mike car. Yeah, Donat Prodan, he's going to be looking to try and get this position. Obviously, it's not easy to overtake at this part of the track, but if he can just stick it close enough, when we get onto the Common Rod Straight, he might have the opportunity. And it looks like Cameron Sansano actually running a little bit wide through that previous part of the track just before the chicane. It looks like a little bit of contact there between Donat Prodan and Ollie McGowan, just showing how he seems a little bit quicker on this downhill section, really putting the pressure on. It's all going to be about the exit from here. Even more contact, really bumper to splitter there. Going to have to avoid any unnecessary damage because it could slightly impact straight line speed and potential front downforce as well. Now we see though that Donat Prodan, it looks like the Porsche has a bit more power, because on the straights he doesn't seem to be able to close off. In fact, that gap is extending, and that's exactly what you don't want on this track, because the best opportunities for overtaking are the places where you have that straight line speed, and it doesn't seem to be with Volante Racing today, and that's going to mean that this race might be a bit of a struggle for them unless they can make an overtake at the very early stages of a lap.
This Aston Martin is a little bit down in that regard. It's not the best in the straight line with the BOP, but they're doing well up there in 10th place. That car has been struggling quite a bit this season. In fact, in the other races, they haven't had the best luck in some races either. But this is a good position. But as you say, yeah, the Porsche just pulls weight ever so slightly on the straight. It could be to do with wing angle as well, of course. But those 2 Porsches for Speedy Mike looking really good there inside the top 10. And so good news for us is that at the front, David Mrocek has set the fastest lap of the race, but he's not getting away too fast just yet. Only 1.5 seconds away from Nita Velix. So I think we're going to see a good fight for this top position, as we're already seeing the sun start to rise a little bit in the background.
Yeah, and right now it looks like we've got a three-way Bentley battle there, emerging with Remco Major P7. Up ahead is Ludovic Ferrari behind him, and it looks like Cameron Sansano as well. No, that's not Cameron Sansano behind them. But yeah, there you go. The undercover car putting on a lot of pressure on Ludovic Ferrari. It looks like Georgi Nadev just ahead of them in P5 with that Go Team car. Ferrari right now with one move. He's holding on to the position for now, but because it's all the same manufacturer, it's going to even them out a little bit. So setup and drivers are going to have a bit more of an impact between them as they head along the Conrod Straight now. They just don't seem to have the power to close up to each other, extending that gap just towards the end of the mountain section just means they're not close enough to each other to try and make a move, although I say that Ferrari really closing up under brakes to that car in front of him. We have got Remco Major behind. Another car pulling into the pit lane. There you saw just on the right-hand side of your screen. But right now, we've got Christian Michel. In fact, this is Rory McDuff. So he's pulled into the pit lane to serve a drive-through penalty. It looks like Remco Major, though, will continue watching because it'll be interesting to see where McDuff comes out in relation to these three cars. And I'm not sure that he is going to have a great time of it right now. I'm not sure where he is on the timing screen, but he's going to be behind these guys right now.
Yeah, it seems like he's come out in 7th place, so that's actually not too bad for him. That's maybe what Leon Bock should have done, because he would have sort of gained a bit of track position when the cars are spread out. So 7th position isn't too bad. He can still do things from there. He's ahead of that double Speedy Mike battle. So that's actually worked out pretty decently for him, whereas Leon Bock is all the way down in 18th position. That's going to be quite hard for him to come back from. And yeah, this is quite a nice battle actually forming, because these are some good teams with one move and undercover. Also Go Team Racing involved as well. So I think this is going to be a nice battle forming for this position. These guys have always been fighting for the sort of best of the rest position, at least for Go Team Racing. They've always been in that sort of top position, but never really fighting for a race victory. But that is why they're currently sitting very pretty in the championship in 3rd place. So Go Team Racing could do with a good result, because they need to try and overcome the two Knight of Alex cars, and specifically the number 30 Knight of Alex car, which is the one that is currently in 2nd place with Christian Michel.
Yeah, and right now he's got a bit of pressure from behind, but it seems like he's still holding on to that position, and judging by their speed on the straights, it doesn't seem incredibly likely that position could be made here. Remco Major 3.5 tenths back as we head into the chase. You can see under braking closes up a little bit in terms of track space. There's a good exit. However, actually we could see a move here into Murray's corner. Under brakes, looking to the outside, then moving to the inside, having a sniff of that inside line, deciding not to go for it quite yet on that 5th position car. But these guys all seem to be relatively closely matched in terms of pace. Into Hell Corner as well. Major having a little look at that inside line, a little bit of a touch on the rear of Ludovic Ferrari. There's a bit of contact on the exit. Doesn't quite have the speed though to make the most of that. However, right in the slipstream there, that's going to be punching a hole for him to have a little bit more speed. We could see another move moving to the inside now. This will be a good line into Quarry under brakes, and it looks like Major has that before the apex. Really good on the brakes in that Bentley, and that's going to be P5 for Undercover Sim Racing.
Yeah, Major's making some really good progress now. Already up into that top 5, obviously. A couple of penalties have given him a couple of positions, but he is making some moves, and it's good to see that it's not all about qualifying. If you have good race pace, if you have good race craft specifically as well, then you are able to make these positions. And someone who hasn't had to make any positions so far is David Mrojek. He's led from the beginning, but Christian Michel is staying within 2 seconds. So I think this is going to be an awesome fight between these two guys. Obviously, they'll have some teammates to hand over to at some point in the race as well. So I have to see what their pace is like in comparison as well, because normally most teams put their faster driver in first. You then need to see how much, in quotation marks, slower your second driver is, but still within 2 seconds after almost 15 minutes of the race isn't looking too bad for Nita Velox. So I think these guys are going to be challenging. We just need to see what sort of strategy they're going to do, because that can always hinder the race, or make it, in fact.
Yeah, and we've also got the sun beginning to rise. Just at the top of Mount Panorama, I could see it poking through some trees. And yeah, Christian Michael, he's not letting David Broshek absolutely run away. He's still staying a consistent distance behind. And that could mean that we see an interesting battle for first emerge. As you see, this will continue on to those second drivers, what they can do. And I think that we might have a couple of drivers already out of the race. I think we've only got 24 runners remaining. I might be wrong there, but it looks like Gabriel Bonacino, we saw him go off earlier. He looks to be out. David Junt, I think, out, and Nick De Silva as well. So Georgian Nadev, though, he's got Remco Major right behind him. Once again, we can see a similar move into Quarry. Having a look at the outside, it might be a dummy because Major's going to go for the inside. He's looking for the room. There just doesn't seem to be an awful look there down the inside of the Go Team car, though, and he's done it again. That seems to be his favourite position for making those overtakes. Just really, really good on the brakes, able to squeeze ahead. Oh. And that's going to be fourth place, but he does nearly hit the barrier there.
Yeah, he's certainly pushing quite a lot, but he knows that now he's got a 10-second gap ahead of him to the Wanako car, so he needs to really get on with it if he wants to challenge for this podium, which I'm sure he absolutely does. But oh, this is a nice shot now, going up over the crest there. That's a really nice shot there by Ruben, with the cars just flying a little bit as the sun rising in the background, and you'll see that actually it rises quite quickly, and you'll see that the light really comes at you, and before you know it, we will be in daytime conditions. But that's a really nice shot there. And we need to see what Remco can do. Can he get up the road and get off up to the podium, or can the likes of Georgi Nedev come back at him and fight for that fourth position now? But Remco making good progress in the first 15 minutes of this race.
Yeah, that rising sun is going to be incredibly distracting, as we saw just there from the onboard as they come down the hill. It's beginning to become a bit more prominent in that skyline, and it's going to be very bright, and it's going to shine off the track a lot. So it's going to be yet another test, and you can see on the left there the DNFs. So already the track here taking its toll on some of the teams, and a few drivers have already been drawn to retire. And it looks like there's yellow flags in Sector 2. They've gone as quickly as they came out there as we head now along the pit straight. Georgi Nadev is beginning to drop back from Remco Major. That Bentley is seeming to have a good amount of pace. That Go Team BMW, though, can he hold off Ludovic Ferrowy, who seems to be putting on a bit of pressure as well? And it looks like behind those two, there might be a couple cars getting a little bit close, but Ferrowy moving to the outside. This might not be the ideal line for an overtake into Quarry. It looks like maybe Nadev has learned his lesson from last time, but under brakes again. That Bentley taking a position once more, and it does seem that those brakes on the Bentley are very effective on that uphill turn. You can see a big drift there from Remco Major just in front of these two drivers as Georgi Nadev tries to stick behind Ludovic Ferrowy, but just doesn't seem to have the speed in that BMW to keep up and have a crack at that position and taking it back.
Yeah, that turn 2 Quarry corner, such a cambered corner, so you can really lean on the car and really push the car, dig it in to the corner. And if you just have a little bit more confidence than your opponent, you can really come off on top. And it just seems Nadev on both those occasions didn't really want to fight it into those corners, both on the outside and inside, which is quite an interesting factor. He didn't like either side of the road, he just didn't want to fight it into that corner, and has now gone down to 6th place. But one reason why they've been so good is because he and his team have been quite consistent. So let's see how that works its way through the 3 hours as we jump back to the fight between the two Speedy Mites, with Prodan still behind them, but it seems like they're not pulling away from him. So that Aston Martin isn't too bad, but obviously just not enough to go for an overtake just yet.
Yeah, I think that McGowan, he will be trying to close up on his teammate, but I think these Speedy Mite cars, they're going to be really interesting this race because they seem to be putting in quite a good show. Of course, we have got one of them out. That was the one with Nick De Silva at the wheel, and it looks like we might see a teammate battle because Ollie McGowan down the inside of Cameron Sansano into the final turn, Murray's corner, and it looks like he's just about gotten away with it. And those two sister cars exchanging positions. That's 8th place now for Ollie McGowan and 9th place for Cameron Santano.
normally with sister teams, you sort of maybe have a little bit of a friendly relationship, but we have seen a couple of these Speedy Mike cars actually getting quite close with battles. They've often been side by side on track. We see once again the battle is not over. They're almost going side by side once again. It's actually Santana getting the position back. I think that might have been because they swapped around, didn't they? So they've obviously they're still going for the fights, and there's no team orders or anything like that, but they are starting to lose a bit of time to the cars ahead of them, so they need to be careful with their battling. Also now Donut Prodan is all over the back of them as well, coming up the hill.
Yeah, this is going to be really close now. Because of these two cars battling, they've lost a bit of time, and Donut Prodan is going to start putting the pressure on these two drivers. It looks like Cameron Santana beginning to pull away a little bit, but that Volante Racing Aston Martin looking very present in the mirrors of that number 92 car. As you can see, the sun in the background, that's going to be a little bit blinding as we head through the S's downhill. You can see shining off the track as they hit the curve to try and get the rotation. The brakes again getting very close, almost touching again. We've seen a little bit of contact between cars at this part of the track. Fortunately, nothing heavy as of yet. And Donut Prodan all right up the back there. You can see just how close he's getting. In fact, he's had a bit of oversteer. Maybe touched his rear right on the wall. I'm not quite sure if that's had any impact on him as they head along the straight though. 0.3 of a second is the gap. That Porsche does seem to be a bit quicker on the straights though, and that means Volante are going to have to stay with 10th for now. They're not finding the opportunity to get through quite yet, but what this does mean is that Ollie McGowan is going to start losing time to that sister car with Sansano at the wheel, and we'll see a replay now of that. That was Nick Da Silva, so this was earlier on in the race. You can see that is quite a big one there. It's another car.
Unfortunately, it's the Porsche. Obviously, it's rear engine, so you just lose the rear, and it just keeps on coming around, and he couldn't save it. And unfortunately, a couple of cars there getting involved, which is not good. But the other two Speedy Mites are doing actually pretty decent here, up in the top 10 as we mentioned. But it seems that actually the slipstream effect, obviously the car of Santana is pulling along his teammate McGowan, which is not helping Prodan's situation at all. But Prodan's getting very close, and as we come up the hill once again, he needs to try and put himself in a good position. It's not the easiest part of the track to overtake, as we know. In most cases, really, it's sort of impossible in race conditions. But what you have to do is sort of force the person ahead of you to make a mistake. You need to put the pressure on them and try and get them as close to the walls, because especially this corner here, if you just go a little bit too fast, you will smash into the wall. Once again there as well, you need to use all of that little bit of tarmac, so you've got to really push the drivers to the absolute limits, and they're going really fast here. Even in GT3 cars, they're going well over 200 k's all the way through that, so very fast. And if you make just one little mistake, you will be into the wall and probably out of the race at that point, or at least for some significant points at least.
Yeah, we're seeing it now that they are close, but once again, not finding a way through. And Donut Prodan, because he hasn't had an excellent exit there from the dipper, he's going to stay once again behind Ollie McGowan. And you can see the slipstream working for both him and that Speedy Mike car. So while it's working to McGowan's benefit, it's certainly not working to Prodan. He just not close enough as they head through the chase now. And the braking, see the Porsche looking pretty stable through there. We've also got other battles going on. It looks like the Blackbirds Racing McLaren there closing up a little bit behind Donut Prodan with Alex Palmgarten at the wheel. So we'll see what he can do to just try and close up, because this battle doesn't seem to be working awfully well for Prodan. But we've also got this battle here, Georgian Nadev with Rory McDuff behind him. That's Nita Velik's car. That had a drive-through penalty that carried through from last race. He is going to be looking to regain some of those positions that he lost. Of course, he came out of the pit lane behind those three cars that we saw passing earlier. Now it is just Georgie Nadev with Go Team Racing. He's at the back, and it looks like he could drop down to 7th place rather, if Rory McDuff can get through. You can see on the rear camera just how close they get to the walls, and it is quite an extraordinary camera angle, and we'll see quite how close Rory McDuff is willing to get to that BMW to try and put the pressure on. You can see really bouncing all over the track. It's really hilly here, and it's very high speed. So it's quite an interesting combination. It's a real test for the drivers, but it's also a lot of fun to drive around. And we can see that now because of Rory McDuff closing up a little bit. And you can...
Oh,
No, and that's
Remco
Remco Major facing the wrong way. Somehow no one managed to get caught up in that. Luckily, he wasn't sideways along there, facing the wrong way, but not straddling the road. And there's going to be yellow flags there. And we'll see whether he can get going again without taking anyone out. But because we're at that stage of the race where everyone is spread out, this is going to be very, very risky for him. You can see Tom Capusta there trying to get through. We've got other cars, and there's not going to be much of a window of opportunity for Remco Major to get going again. You can see there he goes, but that's going to have cost him a lot of time now. He's now in 15th place, having been going so well so early. He might have damage as well from that impact. We'll head back up to Ollie McGowan and Donut Prodan once again through the chase. Not close enough, but we've got Alexander Palmgarten behind with the Blackbird's McLaren, and he could be putting on a lot of pressure. It looks like he's a little bit quicker than these cars in front of him, so we could have quite a good showing here from Blackbird's Racing if they can get through these guys, because if he gets past Prodan, he may have the speed to try and get past the Speedy Mike cars as well. They look to be equally matched along the straights. Into Hull Corner they go then. It looks like a little bit of oversteer having to be corrected there by Donut Prodan. Alexander Palmgarten not having to deal with quite the same issue with the slipstream as well. It looks like the McLaren is only a little bit faster along the straights. Of course, both British machinery, although one is an Aston Martin, one is a McLaren. But this does mean that the Speedy Mike cars are beginning to pull away just that little bit. And we've got Jeffrey Ellis behind as well with the Joy Racing Bentley. He'll be looking to close up that gap a little bit more, stop putting on the pressure on these cars in front of him. You can see that gap is beginning to close down. However, it looks like we're going to have a 5-car battle emerging soon. This is going to be a replay of what happened to Remco Major.
Is he going to be over pushing, or is he going to hit the inside wall here actually at the dipper? No, he just gets the rear bit loose and didn't look like there's any contact with the walls. Oh, fortunately there, that was I believe Rory McDuff, who we were on board with, managed to avoid him straight away, but Remco Major is actually in the pit lane at the moment as we speak, so I don't know if he actually got a tiny bit of damage there, maybe from somewhere else, but either way, he had the spin around, and he lost, just checked before his pit stop, he lost 40 seconds, 40 seconds, so much time. It's coming on for pretty much half a lap, or a little bit more, and he... I assume this is going to be another replay, or was this him hitting the wall a bit earlier, which is maybe why. And actually, we did see him, oh yeah, that was the second time we saw him at the cutting as well, and that maybe didn't help the situation. And you can see he actually had a bit of steering damage there as well, which probably wasn't helping him control the rear, would have been a little bit more loose, and he just got it sliding a little bit too much through the corners before that. And unfortunately, that is going to put him now a lap down as he comes out of the pit lane. Obviously, everyone else will have to make their pit stops, but he will need to make an extra pit stop compared to everyone else in this race. So that's pretty much game over in terms of the top points, which is a shame because he was going to be potentially fighting for the podium with a bit of strategy, but instead we're going to have to leave it to the likes of One Move, Go Team Racing, and also Rory McDuff to take on the battle to Wanako there in 3rd place. But Rory McDuff currently there in 6th position, has now got his next target ahead of him, and with his teammate only still 2 seconds off the lead, I would assume Rory McDuff has some race leading pace as well, so I wouldn't be surprised if he starts carving through these few cars ahead of him.
Yeah, he does look quite quick following that drive through, which has put him in a position that isn't reflective of his pace, and we're seeing that now because he is putting on a lot of pressure to Georgi Nadev. But what has happened as a result of Major's incident is that these guys have all gained a position without actually having to do anything, although they could quite easily have lost it had they had contact with that Bentley. And you can see getting right up to the barriers is Georgi Nadev trying to hold on to that 5th position, though I do think Rory McDuff is in a good place to try and take it at some point relatively soon. But that is a big shame for the Undercover Sim Racing team, looking very strong now. That's going to scupper their chances at a high finish, though we could see a decent recovery drive from them. But on the straights now, you can see that McLaren is a little bit quicker with that distance slipstream, half a second down right now Doesn't look like he's going to be able to close it up quite enough to make a move up in the right-hand side. You can see Alexander Palmgarten behind Donut Prodan towards the chase. But look at this. Rory McDuff has had quite a good exit, and he looks to be maybe having a go at Georgi Nadev, looking around the outside into Murray's corner. Could go for a later apex here, try and maximise the exit speed and have another look into Hell Corner for turn one. Georgi Nadev now on the inside, Rory McDuff on the outside, and that looks like Georgi Nadev just drifting over a little bit and having a bit of contact, but a good switchback there from Rory McDuff if he can make the most of it with the exit speed. It looks like, yes, he's going to start pulling away ahead, although he's going to have to hold on to it as we head towards Quarry, that right-hander, although with the speed of that McLaren in a straight line, he just about has it before that braking zone begins, and it's going to be P5 for the Nita Alex car.
And that car's looking quick, and Rory McDuff there with a nice bit of racecraft. He wasn't really ever going to overtake into turn one, but he just put Nadev off, made him go offline to have a slower exit. So a really nice racecraft there to get that position, P5 as you say. And he now needs to try and chase down one move, and they're only about 4 seconds up the road. So again, wouldn't be surprised if he is going to be making that position fairly shortly. But now we jump to Blackbirds Racing in that 9th place, made another couple of positions with the likes of Remco Muir having some issues. So doing a good race so far. And he now needs to try and get past Prodan, who is also on the back of one of the speedy mites as well. So this is turning into a really good battle here, with Joy Racing not too far behind as well. So this battle for P7 is really starting to heat up, and they have lost time to the top 6, but either way they're having a good battle themselves, and this midfield is certainly very competitive.
Yeah, and it's been a decent race so far for the for Donut Prodan with Volante Racing. He's up 4 positions since the start of the race, although that could fall to just 3 if Alex Palmgarten can get through it. It looks like this might be his opportunity as we head along the Conrod Straight towards the chase. On the right-hand side goes that McLaren. It's all going to be about the brakes here. He's going to have the outside for the first part of the turn, but the inside for the second part, and it looks like he's just about going to squeeze ahead under brakes. Very good left foot there with the Blackbirds McLaren, and that's going to be 8th place for Blackbirds Racing and 9th for Volante Racing, which does mean that up ahead you've got the speedy white car of Ollie McGowan, who's going to be beginning to look in his mirrors if this Blackbirds car is going to start closing up. You can see the gap now pretty much equidistant, and it looks like Donut Prodan not having a great time of it, because Jeffrey Ellis with Joy Racing is now putting on pressure to him as well, seeing it as the position has just Donut Prodan has just fallen 1 position. Jeffrey Ellis trying to make that 2, and we're going to see a replay now of Rory McDuff on the Go Team car with Georgi Nadev, and this was what we saw just earlier on the exit. It looks like, yeah, Nadev moved to the inside, and you can see McDuff had right up against the outside, and yeah, that Go Team BMW just drifting across to the right a little bit. Nothing major though, and on the exit, in fact, there's a bit of contact on the right, and you can see slight damage to the bodywork there as McDuff tried to take that position, so that might have a little bit of an impact for him.
Yeah, really good work there from Rory McDuff. Nice move indeed. Obviously a bit of contact, which you don't really like to see, but nothing more than some door taps. Always Prodan goes off there. Can the Joy car get back on? In front, no, he can't, so he's going to have to sit there behind, but Prodan hitting the wall there. So Prodan's obviously having a few issues over the last lap or 2, and now Ellis is going to be looking very happily at this, because the position is going to be coming towards him very soon if he can get his Bentley up and involved, because Prodan is making some mistakes and maybe has a bit of damage on that car now as well. And we do know it's not the best in the straight line, so this Bentley is going to be making some progress, and maybe not this lap, but certainly in the future he's going to be looking. And Remco Muir there, best lap time of the race, so he's looking fast after making that pit stop as well. Obviously him being a lap down now and can't really do too much. Prodan once again goes off, and this is going to give the chance for Ellis. Oh, he couldn't quite get his nose there to the what would have been the inside to the final corner, so Prodan needs to just regroup a little bit, get the concentration back and try and get back on the speed, because otherwise he's going to lose so much time, as they're already 5 seconds behind Blackbirds. So Lante, yeah, needs to pick up the pace a little bit, but first of all, calm down and get back in the zone.
Yeah, and you could say that his incident really hasn't knocked his performance. That's a 2:04.0, which is 3 or more like 2 tenths quicker than David Mrozek's best lap. That last lap there was, a second faster than Mrozek's last lap. So some really good pace from Major. And that's Jeffrey Ellis. He's had a spin. He's off at Quarry. And it looks like he must have hit the barrier there, potentially locking up the rear brakes, and he's lost his rear wing. That's going to mean a real limp back to the pits. You can see there Tom Kapusta getting past with the Revo Satellite Racing Bentley, and on the rear camera there, usually there'd be a big ring. Oh, and that's really not going well. He just doesn't have the rear downforce. It's going to be a code 80, and this is going to even things out a little bit in just a couple of seconds then, and that's going to be a real shame for Jeffrey Ellis. He's looking really strong. Just one mistake though, with this track being so punishing for those mistakes, he's going to have to limp round. It's going to be a long way to the pit lane, that being so early on in the lap, and the cars are just going to have to be careful. Interesting that was a code 80 and Remco Major wasn't, although Major of course didn't really take any real damage and everyone did manage to avoid him, or for the most part, as far as I know. But yeah, this is
also,
sorry.
Just saying that Sean Jacobs, the race director, he's tried to be a little bit more lenient with the code 80s, because the code 80s have huge impact for strategy and things like that, as we're seeing already the leaders come into the pit lane. But firstly, let's see a replay. Oh, just got onto the grass there on the entry. Obviously lost the grip on the rear, and he's gone back, and obviously it's code 80 because he's going to have a really slow in lap there with no rear wing. So it does give him an opportunity to get back to the pit lane and continue racing, but also it gives the opportunity for other people to do something on strategy. And it is an awkward time in the race really to be making a pit stop, but obviously the drivers are thinking that this is going to be the best time to go for it, so fair enough. Let's see what they do when they come out, and it looks like David Mrozek there retakes the lead, and this would be a good time as well, maybe to change tyres potentially, because obviously you're saving time with this pit stop, but we won't really know until this all works itself out and till it unfolds. But there are a number of drivers who have actually stayed out as well. I believe Nico Barkley stayed out, and Ludovic Ferrari has stayed out as well. But McDuff's in, Nadev is in, and the other drivers haven't quite got there yet.
Yeah, I think that replay was just to answer one of the questions that was in the chat, which is what happened to Cameron Sansano, and I think we've just seen there he's already made a pit stop this race, so this code 80 not really beneficial, but it does help Jeffrey Ellis a little bit, this code 80, because it does neutralise the amount of time it will take him to get to the pits. Otherwise he'd be going a lot slower than everyone else, and you can see him really struggling, having lost that rear wing. But yeah, we've got David Mrozek still in the lead. Nico Barkley with Monaco in second, and we're going to see the helicopter shot actually. So through the chase they go, and it looks like Cameron Sansano just not early enough on the brakes. Maybe that pressure from behind amounting a little bit, and he had to be careful when rejoining, because you can see a couple more cars blast past afterwards, and there he gets going again. But I do believe he made a pit stop following that incident, but that did drop him all the way down to 12th place, and it looks like he's now back in the pits there. You can see under this code 80, and it sort of neutralizes the pit stop, the code 80 does, and it allows for a semi-free pit stop. But with still 2 hours 22 minutes to go, the effect of this is going to mean that maybe a fuel saving to an extent, to try and minimise the pit stop, try and keep to the regular amount of pit stops, which is usually 2 during these 3-hour races, and then get to the end of the race without having to do that extra one, which is going to cost a fair amount of time. Though if one person has to do it, the likelihood is everyone else will too.
Yeah, indeed. It's
Come back to green in 10 seconds.
An awkward time in the race, because it might be
5,
a little bit too fast
4,
coming back to
3,
green.
2,
It might be a
1,
little bit
green flag.
difficult to go to with only one more stop, but at least as you say, if everyone has to make another second stop, so effectively 3 stops in the race, at least sort of everyone's going to be in that position, and maybe if you can then save a bit of fuel and have a shorter splash and dash, then maybe that can work. But 2 hours 20, it's not out of reason. You need sort of 2 1 hour and 10 minute stints plus a little bit extra. So I wouldn't be surprised if one of the teams who pit now makes that, but it's not going to be the easiest thing in the world. We'll have to see how that one develops, because also the driver swaps have to happen at some point as well, and they won't have had time to plan that with when the code 80 was called, because of how driver swaps work in R-Factor 2. It takes a little bit of time, but we'll have to see how that one works out. But now Roy McDuff on the back of Ollie McGowan, and Roy McDuff was one of the ones to make a pit stop, which is why he went down to 8th position, and he's getting the slipstream. That McLaren is very good in straight line. Will he be able to get his nose down the inside? Will he have to go to the outside? No, he's going to just back out of that opportunity for now. Try and maybe do what he did. Oh, as the speedy mile goes off though, so this is going to give a good opportunity for Roy McDuff to do what he did to Nedev. Push him to the outside and then get an undercut, but obviously coming into the final corner isn't really the best place to do it, so that's what he's done. He's let him go, and he's going to try and do the same again. He's being nice and patient here because he knows the best overtaking opportunity really is up in towards turn 2. So Roy McDuff now trying to put Ollie McGowan off, coming through Hell Corner, turn number 1, now to get a bit of a slingshot, which is what he does, and he gets his nose down the inside, although that's going to turn to the outside, so he's got to hope that he has enough straight line speed here or good enough brakes, and then this will be P7, as it seems he's already got ahead on the straight. But how are the brakes for Ollie McGowan? That Porsche is generally pretty good, but will Roy McDuff now go around the outside? Really good move there, and he can hold it on the outside because you can use all the extra curb there, and that is P7 for McDuff. Really good move for him, and that is now going to put him into a little bit of clean air to try and get some of that time back.
Yeah, and Jeffrey Ellis in that Joy-Cart, he's out. Simon Marshall is in, but they've now got a penalty to add to their woes, which is just unfortunate for them. However, we've got a race to continue with. Gasper Zupan right now with Trojan Donut Automotive in 16th place, with Andre Muscala with Scuderia Muscala in 15th. Now we know that the McLaren is pretty good in a straight line, but so is the Porsche. And it's all going to be about what they can do in the uphill to try and extend that gap if you're Scuderia Muscala, or to try and close down that gap if you're at the wheel of that Porsche. As they head up the hill now, it looks like that gap, it did extend a little bit, and it's continuing to extend, but it's staying about 9/10 of a second, which is a safe enough distance if you're that lead car. However, that car behind is going to be looking to close up and looking for all of the time he can on track. Now, this is the race leader. It's David Mroszek right now with Burst Esport. He hasn't made a pit stop. He decided not to pit during that code 80. Behind him is Nico Barkley, 3 seconds down the road. He did make a pit. He has made a pit stop so far, I believe. Unless, of course, there has been something, unless that was a drive through, which I don't think there was for the Monaco car. Now, they've not had the luckiest season, and they're going to look to try and bounce back. Could this be the race that they have a finish that they want? Because they've been really strong, but it's just been unfortunate incident after unfortunate incident, disconnections, all that kind of thing that has just really marred their season so far. They're going to be looking for a redemptive drive, and this could be it this evening. In fact, they look to be closing up a little bit on David Mroszek, who was quite a slow last lap. That was a 2:07.0 compared to Monaco's 2:05.2. That gap now down to 2.5 seconds from 3 seconds. That might be something to watch out for, of course, on different numbers of pit stops. We'll see what Monaco can do. But this is Anthony Maras right now in the P18 Flying Goat Mercedes. Yuri Suzel behind him in the core team BMW. That's 19th place right now. Rob Moore behind them a little bit further down the road. So we'll see how that all emerges. And a little bit further down, we've got Remco Major currently in 22nd, so he'll be looking to gain some places after those incidents earlier on in the race. Now, these guys we're watching right now are about 2 minutes behind David Mroszek, so they'll be potentially being lapped soon, actually. So we'll see what impact that has on them. But yeah, Anthony Maras there, the 2:07.8 last lap. Yuri Suzel did a 2:06.7, so it does seem that that core team car is a little bit quicker, so we'll see what happens as we head up the mountain whether one takes the position off the other. We might have to wait until we get to the Conrod Straight though, because it is just so difficult to make a move up there. The best bet is to try and stick behind as close as possible, as we've seen before, and try and make something work along the Conrod Straight, or perhaps into Quarry if you get a good enough exit from Hull Corner, which doesn't seem to be the case right now. But closing up already, it looks like, is Yuri Suzu. That gap now 6.5 tenths of a second down from 9 tenths, although it seems to be ebbing and flowing as we head around this very tight section, getting a little bit close to the barrier. You don't want to get too close though, although trying to carry the maximum amount of speed to keep that gap relatively low. Now down to half a second, so gaining a lot of time is Yuri Vashuzel for the core team car. As we head downhill now, it's just 2 tenths, so really quick at some stages of this circuit. You can see the slow-mo over there. That looks fantastic.
I'll tell you something that's getting a bit close as well is the battle for the lead of the race, with Juanico catching up to the back of Burst Esports. So that's another gap to look out for, as it's under 1 second now. So I do wonder if this is just the pace of Juanico, because obviously they've got less fuel at this moment and that sort of stuff. But maybe it is to do with a bit of fuel saving. Maybe David Mrček is trying to get that fuel number to try and get himself to the end of the race with only one more pit stop. And if that is the case, then that means that Juanico would actually be in a little bit of a worse position, because obviously they need to make 2 pit stops, really. But we'll see how the one works out, as Maris is still holding on for this 18th position at the moment with that sole Mercedes. It's a shame that Mercedes don't have that many cars about, but obviously it's not the best car in terms of the performance, which is why there's only one. And looking on the standing screens, actually, Juanico have seemed to have taken the lead there. So I do wonder if this is due to the rate that Barkley's caught up to him and now overtaken Mrček. I do wonder if there's some sort of fuel saving going on from Mrček here to try and make this work. But at the moment, he's losing a lot of time, so I don't know if it's going to work out. But he does have, if that is the case, he does have a whole pit stop on Nico Barkley to lose effectively.
Yeah, now I think we're going to see a replay here, and this is along the Conrod Straight. A lot of power in that BMW for Juanico as they head towards the chase, and it looks to have just gone straight past, so maybe a lower fuel setting for David Mrček, of course. He hasn't made a pit stop, though the car now in front of him has. So yeah, you can see their team Juanico there on the rear wing. But yeah, that's the lead of the race to Nico Barkley. We'll see what he can make of that, but already dropping back as David Mrček. That gap now 1.5 seconds and going down even further. So it's interesting to see what happens. The different strategies are clearly evident, and how that all plays out, well, we're not going to find out for another 2 hours and 13 minutes, not until that checkered flag is waved. But with a fair amount of time to go, you can see that BMW flying over the crest of the hill there, almost in the rally kind of style of driving that we get around this track. But this is Rory McDuff there, and it looks like the move on the Volante Aston Martin, I think, there, as they ride over the curb on the exit. He looked to the inside if he could make it as they headed into Murray's corner, and that became a P6 for the McLaren driver.
Yeah, nice move there by McDuff once again. Some very good racecraft, and they've also got that car set up well, because especially after that chicane, they're so much better. And I've been watching on board my screen with Mrček. It does look like he's fuel saving loads, but maybe he's just in a lower engine mixture. I mean, he's being very nice with the downshifts, keeping the revs low and that sort of stuff. But I think he's just trying to make a fuel number work. But we'll see how that one works out. For now, Georgie Nadev on the back of Ollie McGowan for 8th place. And Nadev obviously being very good this season. Can he now make an overtake work with the Speedy Mike car just ahead of him? He's obviously getting a big slipstream now. Can he do similar to what Roy McDuff did? Although he's not really close enough, so we need a mistake from McGowan. So McGowan is going to hold on to this position. But Nadev Cecily is getting close, and he's going to be trying to get that 8th position back. And obviously pit stops involved here. He would be a little bit higher up. And I'm sure we're going to see some pit stops very soon, with only 10 minutes to go of the first hour of the race. And now Nadev getting onto the back of the Speedy Mike car. Needs to line him up here for a move into turn 2, which seems to be one of the best overtaking parts of the track, as it turns out. And we're now seeing McGowan come to what will effectively be the outside, actually. We're trying to get out of the slipstream, trying not to let Nadev get any extra time that he can. And it looks like that Porsche is actually pretty respectable in the straight line. He's holding on well there. So maybe that Porsche is actually looking quite good to defend from the BMW.
Yeah, I think the Porsche is quite a strong car this evening. But we have got one out there, that was Nick De Silva, quite early on. He has been the most recent DNF. However, Ollie McGowan looking pretty good ahead of Georgi Nadev. We'll see whether he can hold on to that position. But yeah, looking quite good. And we've also got those other things to look out for around the track. Yeah, and I'm really interested to see what happens to that Bathurst eSport car, because David Mroczek is going slowly. So that is interesting. It looks like it's some kind of strategic decision. Although, that being said, behind him a gap isn't absolutely huge to Christian Michael in that Nita Velux McLaren. And it does seem that right now, Anthony Maras is holding Yuri Vashuzil off in his Mercedes. So not looking too bad as that Flying Goat car. So long as they can hold off core team for the next 2 hours and 10 minutes, which is going to be something relatively difficult, but we might see decisions relating to strategy. Of course, it looks like Maras has made a pit stop, or at least entered the pit lane once, whereas Jon Vashuzil has not. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. And what's interesting is that Leon Bock, he's been through the pit lane 3 times, the most out of any driver in the session as yet. So it's not been a brilliant race for him, but that was of course due to penalties as well. And you can see Georgi Nadev right now P9, about to take P8 off Ollie McGowan if he can get it through to Hull corner. You can see right now, having a look at that inside line, just not getting the room. He didn't have the straight line speed. Once again, that Porsche looking very strong in terms of power. You can see just up the road a little bit is the Volante car with Donat Prodan at the wheel. However, Georgi Nadev is in the slipstream. He's going to pull to the inside. That's the ideal line into Corey. We've seen it work a couple of times so far, so long as he can get it under brakes. And it looks like Ollie McGowan just a little bit later with the left foot a little bit heavier has managed to get it turned in and hold on to that position for now. But Go Team are putting on a lot of pressure, really trying to find a way through here. He's not going to let that go quite easily. And this does mean that they're going to be losing a little bit of time to Donat Prodan, and that will give him a tiny bit of breathing room, although they have got a fair gap behind them to Tom Kapusta. That's over 10 seconds. So they have got leeway to battle, and that's what they're going to be doing right now, because Nadev is really sticking to the back of that Porsche as they're getting a little bit close for comfort, I think, to some of these walls on the exit. Can we see a move down the inside? That would be very brave if he decided to do that as we head over the crest now for the downhill section of Mount Panorama. This is going to be very, very close. It's all going to be the exit out of the dipper, which we're just coming up to now. Through this right-hander, a dab of brakes before heavy on the brakes, downhill, trying to keep it to the inside before getting on the power. And it looks like McGowan has just about got that throttle down a little bit quicker, but with the slipstream, Nadev has an advantage. You can see that gap closing down quite rapidly. In fact, he's going to move to the inside of the speedy white Porsche, and that's going to be 8th place rather for Go Team Racing as they head into the chase. He's just got to hold on to it now. Under brakes, will Ollie McGowan have a go at striking back? It looks like he's not decided to, so that will be those positions for the time being, unless McGowan tries to make a move and reclaim that at some point in the near future. But a good move there from Georgi Nadev, just had a lot more straight line speed than that Porsche.
Yeah, I do wonder if McGowan just let him go there, because that extra speed that Nadev had was quite incredible, actually. I do wonder if maybe there's some fuel saving, or maybe McGowan just wants to sit in the slipstream. Bit weird, because the overspeed was just way more than what you'd naturally expect. Quite an interesting one. Have to see if that one works out. Maybe he just realizes that Nadev's probably a bit quicker than him, as he was before the Code 80 situation, so he's just going to let him go. Going to let him go off into the distance. There is a 7-second gap ahead of him, so now he can just do his own thing there in that 9th place. So working out not too bad for him. And I was keeping an eye on this battle for the lead. It's now gone up to over 4 seconds already, so Wanako making up some good time here. Mrček was over a second slower on that last lap, and Christian Michel was actually quicker than both of them. In fact, almost 2 seconds a lap quicker than David Mrček. Quite an interesting one. Mrček apparently didn't change tyres at the pit stop, so maybe that is a factor. That obviously he's probably on similar tyres to the guys around him, but obviously just with a lot more fuel, so that could make sense for the pace difference. But I do think there's maybe something else going on there with that speed of David Mrček, so I have to see how that one develops, because the Nita Velix car is actually closing in now. Christian Michel is only 2.5 seconds behind the Burst eSport car for that battle for second and third place. So I think this one is one to look out for in the next few laps, because at the pace of recent laps, Christian Michel is going to be closing that gap pretty quickly, and that is going to be effectively what we're going to presume is the battle for the lead once all the pit stops work out, because Wanako will be coming in the next 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, no, I think I'm going to have to apologise there, because my screen is lying to me, I think, about pit stops, because David Mrček came in for fuel, but Anthony Maras now still holding on to that position. He's still defending quite well. He just needs to be able to hold on to this position. Christian Michel, though, he does have fresh tyres, and look at this, Yuri Verschuzel really getting close to the back of the Flying Goat, which takes off down the hill. Can he hold on to that position though? Because that looks like it's not gone brilliantly for Verschuzel. Onto the curb, you can see a little bit of dust kicked up as they head through the dip, and now it's all about the exit speed. The Mercedes seems to be all right, although saying that, Verschuzel is closing up already with the slipstream. This is going to be painful for Maras, because the chase couldn't come sooner, but it is just such a long straight here along the Conrod straight. It's 3.5 tenths, that gap now down to 3 tenths, down to 1/4 of a second. Even below that under braking though, there just isn't that gap for Verschuzel to get through. He's going to have to hold on behind for now. As he heads towards Murray's corner though, he's going to have slipstream once more, but he just hasn't had a brilliant exit from the chase, and he's going to have to stick behind that Mercedes until the next opportunity arises, which could come at another lap. So that's going to be a little bit frustrating being stuck behind there, but that is David Mrček leaving the pit lane. So he has in fact made a pit stop there, and you can see Nico Barkley, he was heading along the straight during the code 80, and that's why he came out so close behind and that managed to take that position. So that is Nico Barkley, the race leader currently, 4 seconds clear from David Mrček, who has 2 seconds behind him to Christian Michel. But once again, we've got this battle for 18th. It looks like it's not going to be finishing anytime soon.
Yeah, it certainly isn't. And that pace from Mrček's a bit weird actually, because on the last lap he just suddenly went to low 2-minute 5s again, which is fairly normal race pace. So maybe he's just controlling it a bit. Maybe it was just a bit of traffic here and there, because there are some lapped runners now, as you mentioned, a bit weird. So we'll just see how it develops, because maybe he realizes that Michel's getting a bit close now. But certainly if he wants to make that fuel window, he will have to do a little bit of saving. As we now jump back to Evolution Motorsports and Leon Bock down there in 17th position. He's trying to get up from obviously quite a difficult start to this race. Obviously not the best qualifying in the world, then having the penalty as well, and in general not really having the pace today. So I think that's a battle to look out for as well. But for Zluzel here, getting close to Maras, but also got Remco Major just behind them as well, popping up in the background as well. So this turned into a three-way fight. So if Zluzel doesn't get past here, you can bet your bottom dollar that Remco Major will be making some moves like we saw about 30 minutes ago before his spin.
Yeah, and he's not had a brilliant time of it, but he has got up to this battle quite rapidly. He's still holding the fastest lap is Remco Major, and in fact that's Yuri Verschuzel, who's accidentally gone completely off the track there. Fortunately it was just grass and he has been able to get away with it without major incident. He's lost a bit of time though to that car which he was battling, that was Anthony Maras, and now we have got Remco Major who's going to be looking to get past. You can see just up ahead, very close. He's going to go for a later apex, try and maximise the exit speed as we head up the mountain straight. Really close behind is that Bentley on the Mercedes, moving to the inside. It looks like this move might be done and dusted, running very close. We know how quick Remco Major is, especially in his favourite overtaking place under brakes, sticking it on the inside, and he's going to be able to hold on to it very nicely and start making his way up the order, although he does get very close to the outside barrier there, taking that position. There's going to be a replay of a Remco Major, and that's Yuri Verschlüsel, who outbroke himself, it looks like, and went straight off the track, which has cost him a little bit of time. But once again, it is fortunate that the chase has that bit of grass there, which allows for errors, unlike so many other places around this track.
17th place, Speedy Mike DNF. Not sure which one that is, but one of the Speedy Mike cars there having a DNF from the race to add to the small list of DNFs that we've had so far. That's obviously given a position to, for instance, these guys with Zupan and Bok coming in P15 and 16. Bok, as we mentioned, not having the best start to the race, but there's still now 2 hours left in the race as we come to the end of the first hour here. First hour of proceedings, and we're going to see what's the strategy is going to work out into. Obviously, some of these drivers have already stopped under the code 80, some of them haven't, and that's going to have big impacts when we get towards this next part of the race, as we see Aris Mashuli now in P14 coming in, interestingly, pretty much at the hour mark, which means that he's not going to have a shorter final pit stop, because normally what the teams try and do is they try and go a couple of minutes into the next hour, so that's their final pit stop. It's obviously then less than an hour, and therefore they can maybe take a bit of fuel out and save a bit of time there. But Eros not doing that, pitting exactly on the hour, and some good planning there for him maybe. As we now see Vizluzo trying to get past Maris still, but the Flying Goat is holding on here for P18, and it seems like this Mercedes isn't actually so bad as some people say that it is.
Yeah, and that's Eros Mashudi getting a penalty there. But it does seem that Verschlüsel is quicker, because he's closed up that time he lost when he went off just in front of Remco Major that lap or so ago, or 2 laps ago, and he's closed that up again. So it looks like he maybe is the faster driver. But yeah, that's Ollie McGowan, the number 92 Speedy Mike car. That was out of the race. We've had brief yellow flags. They're gone very quickly though. But Yuri Verschlüsel is trying to find a way past Anthony Maris, just really struggling. And it looks like you don't necessarily have to be the quicker driver to stay in front or be in the quicker car around this track. Because of its narrow nature, it just really restricts the overtaking opportunities. And if your car is strong enough on the straights, then so long as you can hold your own on the hill section, you should be able to find your way through. And that's the race leader making his way past, meaning only the top 17 are on the lead lap. That's Nico Barkley there, just navigating through these drivers, trying to take that, just trying to get through and not lose an awful lot of time. Once again, more yellow flags in sector 1. I'm interested to see what the cause of that might be. We've had a couple in the last lap, but Nico Barkley just not finding the way through here on Anthony Maris. Now, if Maris does let, he's going to lose a little bit of time, so it's obviously not in his interest to let the race leader through, although a penalty that would result if he didn't let him through might be even more grave. Now, he's lost about half a second along the straight, although he was 1.5 seconds clear, so nothing major has risen out of that. So this is Giancarlo Costa, who I believe has been the cause. And you can see there, just understeered, became oversteer, hit the inside wall, and that is not brilliant. A bit of damage, I presume, from that, and it's very difficult to try and get going again from such a compromising position. And we have got a number of other pit stops going on right now. We've got Antonio J. Vicens in the pits with Yuri Verschlüsel, I think. No, Gasper Zupan and Eros Mashuli. I think Mashuli serving the penalty now. But yeah, we've still got Yuri Verschlüsel and Anthony Maris with Verschlüsel closing up. But we have got David Mroszek behind them, trying to close up a little bit. And just a little bit further down the road is Christian Michael, who's actually been gaining on both Mroszek and the leader. His gap to Nico Barkley just 3.5 seconds, and it was 6 seconds about 15-20 minutes ago. So it does seem that Sessions Nita Veletskar has a fair amount of pace, and he's going to become quite a threat to the current championship leader and the current race leader. But this is Nico Barkley there making his way past Yuri Verschlüsel And as Gasper Bank gets a penalty, you can see, there's contact actually there.
God.
And I'm not sure that Vashuzel was intending to let the race leader through there, although that is what happened.
That was on the over the verge of being dangerous, actually, because that is a very fast corner. It's only really a lift, maybe a dab of the brakes in these cars, and he's obviously just completely pulled up there. I assume that was to try and let Nico through, but that was a very awkward place, and this traffic is also awkward for David Mrocek. We know that he hasn't got the absolute best pace at the moment. Maybe that's by choice or by not. We're going to find out in the next 30 minutes or so. But Christian Michel now has been able to gain just enough, and he's now in the slipstream. And David Mrocek isn't going to be overly happy about that, as Michel is going to be looking for an overtake at the next best opportunity, but not into this corner for now. But that McLaren of the Nita Velix is looking very quick indeed, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is going to be another position loss for Burst Esport. And maybe it's a strategy game, maybe it's the pace of Mrocek. We will have to find out. But this is certainly quite an interesting point in the race, as this could be a factor for how the race is going to come out. Although Maras now, is he going to let Mrocek through? I think he's actually going to be forced to let both of them through, and that is not the best. And I think Mrocek's going to be under pressure here coming up to Quarry Corner. Got Michel in the slipstream. He's going to have to choose left or right. He's going to go to the left, to the outside, and he's going to have to be good on the brakes if he wants to make this work. And in the background, Maris is also getting overtaken there by Vizluzel, and now Michel getting past, with Mrocek doing a little bit of a flash, so maybe not the most happy with that. But Mrocek now down into third place, and one way or another, it doesn't really matter how it's worked out. They're now down into third place, and they're going to need to find a way, either with strategy or with overtakes, to get those two positions back.
Yeah, and I think what we saw there was that because Maras was forced to let these two cars through, he had an awful exit, and that meant that Vashuzel, who didn't have to let any cars through, could take that position at long last, although he had been struggling for it for quite a while. We've had some brief yellow flags in that first sector. Doesn't seem to be anything major though, because these guys have been able to keep going without incident. And Christian Michel, though, he has taken second place, and he is currently the quickest driver on the circuit, it looks like, although that most recent that doesn't really reflect his pace, given that they were in such high traffic. I mean, Remco Major, currently in P14, he's really quick. In fact, out of all the drivers, he's at the second fastest lap last time around, just 1/10 off the current race leader. But Christian Michel, he's going to be trying to close up that gap to Nico Barkley in the Juanico car. That gap 1.3 seconds though, so he's not closing up as quick as potentially he would like to. In fact, no, sorry, that's 4 seconds, 3.5 seconds to the car in front, and he is clear of David Mrocek. But it is interesting to see whether the Iron Men of Burst Esport are maybe faltering a little bit, or if it is simply strategy. I suppose we're not going to know for quite some time, but it is certainly interesting to have two different cars in the top two, and Monaco, having had such a difficult season so far, could be vying for that win here at Bathurst.
Yeah, the two cars ahead of them at the moment, the Cetres Nita Velux car and the Wanaka car, both looking good as well. And we are going to be, I mean, it's still going to be maybe 30 minutes away, but when we get to that next pit stop for these guys, that's going to be very crucial with how it works out for the remainder of the race and how far David can make this work, really sliding it in there. So he is definitely pushing. Always, so the car behind him of Vizluzel goes a little bit too far there, and he hits the wall. That's going to be some damage. I did predict maybe up to 10 cars are going to be into the wall. We've certainly seen quite a few of that number already. But yeah, Mrocek certainly pushing the way. So I think he is maybe at least trying to go as fast as he can. Just doesn't have the pace at this point in the race. And that's going to be quite an interesting factor to take into account. As we mentioned before, they have only not won one race this season, which was the 3 hours of Imola, where the Williams Esport Chill Blast car of Nikodem Wisniewski and Jakub Brzezinski managed to overtake Pedersen in the final stint and win the race by only 10 seconds. So even on that day where they didn't win, they were still in second place. So we know how good they are. but the way that this race has worked out so far, not quite going their way, and that McLaren is just pulling away ever so slightly ahead of them. So it is quite nice to see this actually. We've got a mixture of different strategies, mixture of different teams, and also 3 different manufacturers, 3 different cars there in the top 3, as Nico Barkley finally makes his pit stop with 1 hour and 51 minutes to go. So that means even with the code 80, he hasn't managed to do 1 hour and 10 minutes, which is what Mojek needs to do twice to get to the end of the race, which is potentially why we're seeing a little bit of fuel saving as Nico Barkley there comes into the pit lane, the very first pit box, or last one even.
Yeah, and also Ollie McGowan, who's just been shown the blue flags. Oh, and that's Giancarlo Costa, I think, once again stuck in the wall there, which is really, yeah, that's very frustrating, I think, because there's not an awful lot he can do in that situation. I'm not sure where Giancarlo Costa is right now, if he's moving or not, but Ollie McGowan, who did disconnect, he is back in the race. Now we've got Bathurst at the wheel, having replaced on up Prodan for Volante Racing, coming out just ahead of Anthony Maris. And we did see a slew of pit stops there at the 1 hour 50 minutes to go. And we'll see what Bathurst can do with the Volante car. I think it's got a slight level of damage on it, so we'll see whether that has any major impact. Anthony Maris, though, with Flying Goat, he's yet to do this pit stop, I don't think. We'll see. But Nico Barkley, Tom Capusta both in the pits, whereas Christian Michel has inherited the race lead as a result of that. 2 seconds clear of David Mojek. He is pulling away a little bit, and we'll have a quick replay of what happened here, because we did see, yeah, that's Nico Barkley there, who was the race leader, and Bart Sabosian coming out right in front of him. You can see damage there actually to the rear left-hand side camera angle on that Monaco car. So pin in the walls has Nico Barkley, it looks like, and he's back out on track in 5th position. This is Cameron Sansano, the only Speedy Mike car that really is in contention for a high place as a result of the poor luck for the Speedy Mike outfit. He's got Ludovic Ferroui behind him though, so he's going to be careful not to lose that position. It looks like the One Move Esports are going to be putting on a lot of pressure to him, as we have got Jonathan Provost now in the undercover sim racing car, but Ludovic Ferroui really sticking his nose up, trying to find that way through Cameron Sansano, putting on the pressure maybe, because that can just be enough. If you can force the car in front to make a mistake, then you can perhaps take a position. And we've got Ollie McGowan, I think, who's many laps down as a result of his disconnection just behind him, but that doesn't mean he's not quick. So he's going to be catching up to them, maybe having an attempt at unlapping himself, because of course he is well within his right to do that so long as he pulls away in a good amount of time. But look at this, Ludovic Ferroui, as we go along the straights, we'll see what the Bentley power does in relation to the Porsche power as we head towards the chase. It looks like that gap is closing down a little bit. Can Ludovic Ferroui find the position? This is going to be 6th place that they're battling for as he moves to the inside for the right-hand kick. He's actually had to dab on the brakes there to avoid contact, and he's going to not quite get that position yet. However, if he can get a good exit here towards the final turn, Murray's corner, he might be able to make that 6th position by the end of the lap, although he just doesn't seem to be finding that room. He did have an opportunity, but that door was shut quite hard by the Speedy Mike car, currently in 6th position. As we head into Hell Corner though, Ferroui under braking. Now what we might see here is the classic move into quarry. It doesn't seem to have been a great exit for Cameron Sansano, so we might see something before then. He looks to have had a bit of oversteer or something, maybe going a bit wide. It's compromised his speed, and this means Ludovic Ferroui could be in the running for that position. In fact, no, he's dropping back a little bit. This is ebbing a little bit as they head along the mountain straight. And Ludovic Ferroui round the outside, taking the position right up to the wall on the outside there of Quarry. But it's going to be 6th place for the One Move Esports Bentley.
Nice move there. Absolutely sent that round the outside. Sansano didn't really put up much of a fight, really, as you may be expecting. Look actually how far Ferroi's gone up the road there. Absolutely massive amount of time he's gained those couple of corners, but look how late on the brakes he is. He's going to gain well over, well, possibly even 2 car lengths there he gained just on the brakes. And through the next couple of corners, he's gained over half a second as well. So he's looking very good to pull away there, not really have to fight too much more. As we now look back to Tom Kapusta, who's on the back of Vizluzul, and we saw Vizluzul hits the wall at the cutting, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's got a bit of steering damage. And as we saw with Major earlier, once you get a bit of steering damage, it makes the car a little bit more unstable, a bit more unsettled, and that could obviously lead to even further mistakes. So this could leave Kapusta be in quite a good position, as we've seen the Bentleys with the recent BOP. Both the 2017 and 2020 Bentley, there are two different models. I mean, they do look fairly similar, but you can just see some little differences between the two of them. And this is the older style that they've got, but yeah, both of them are still looking pretty good on the old BOP update that we had about a month ago now. And it's good to see them fighting up there with Susslight now trying to get inside this top 10. But they need to make up just a little bit more time with Kapusta. And this is the important corner, really, coming out of this final corner through the elbow and onto the back straight, onto the Conrod straight, but it doesn't seem like he's close enough on this lap.
Yeah, it looks like there was a big kick of oversteer for Vizluzul just on the run towards the dipper. But right now he's still quite clear of Tom Kapusta. However, it does seem that Bentley is closing up still. So this is going to be once more a battle to keep an eye on. Of course, we've got the race leader right now. That's Christian Mikel. He's 2.5 seconds clear of David Project. So he's actually clearing that even more. So we'll see as well what the outcome of the battle for first is come the end of the race. Still got an hour and 45 minutes to go though. So definitely, we're not even halfway yet. There's no need for speculation at this stage in the race. He's still got these battles to deal with, and it looks like Tom Kapusta, yeah, he's closed up rapidly there through the final part of the lap into the first part of the next lap, currently on the 35th race around this circuit for this evening. And it's like the inside line might be ideal for the Revo Satellite Racing team, just not finding the run that's needed to make that position. And it does seem that the inside of Quarry is the best place to make an overtake. That's been the trend so far this evening for overtakes. We've seen a couple here and there, but definitely Quarry seems to be a good place to make it work, so long as you're good on the brakes. Now we've got Jonathan Provost there, who we just saw at the helm of the undercover sim racing Bentley. But Tom Kapusta once again behind Yuri Vizluzul, who's had a decent go at attacking Anthony Maris. He's got past, in fact, he's 6 seconds behind these, in fact, no, 8.5 seconds rather, behind these two drivers at the moment as they head down the hill. A little bit of oversteer once again, so maybe those rear tyres not working brilliantly for Yuri Vizluzul, but they're working enough because he's now a second clear of Tom Kapusta, which is going to keep him a safe distance away. And now this is the onboard of Jonathan Provost in that undercover sim racing Bentley on a BMW. A late move to the inside there on the brakes, up on the curve, and in fact a little bit too late because he seems to have disregarded the chicane there, and that's actually cost him a bit more time than he would have gained, as well as adding to a track excursion, which is going to amount to a penalty if he's not careful, and that's going to be something the drivers are going to have to look out for. Fortunately, the pit lane is pretty short around this track, so you wouldn't lose as much time in a drive-through as you might at other places, perhaps Imola, which has a relatively long pit lane in comparison.
Yeah, this pit lane's actually quite nice. First of all, the pit straight isn't too long, but also you have to think about the speed that the cars do on track, and obviously you've got two braking zones in the final corner and turn one as well, so the average speed of the cars going past the pit lane is a lot lower. But someone who has fallen a cropper to some penalties is the Joy Racing cars. Simon Marshall is down there, 22nd place now. It was Ellis who was in the car. We were following him, getting towards even the top 10, and they were looking pretty nice actually in Joy Racing, but unfortunately Marshall did get a couple of penalties. I would assume maybe for speeding in the pit lane and when they did the driver swap. And yeah, down in 22nd place, not so good for those guys, and not even on the lead lap. So not looking the best for them, which is a bit of a shame because they've had a slightly disappointing season. So it was going to be quite a good result for them heading towards there, but now down in 22nd place. It's obviously not where they want to be. But focusing back on this battle on screen, it seems like Costa doesn't quite have the speed advantage. He's not really staying too close here with Vesluzul, so I think he's going to have to rely on a mistake or something like that to try and get this overtake, because it looks like Vesluzul sort of calmed down a little bit now, although he's obviously going wide in a couple of places here and there, but it seems like he's actually doing a pretty decent job here in P10 at the moment, because Costa can't really get too close.
Yeah, and I think quite an entertaining quotation forwarded there by Remco Major. I saw the breaking point in my mirror, said Jonathan Provost, I think, as an explanation as to what happened last at the chase. I don't think you want to be seeing your breaking point in the mirror at such a high-speed braking zone. At least it didn't end as bad as it quite easily could have with the traffic around him. But right now, it looks like Tom Kapusta on Yuri Schusel. This could be the opportunity he needs to take that 10th position. He's going to have a sniff of the inside line. Can he get that big old hunk of a Bentley down the inside? No, he's going to have to back off a little bit on the exit. A bit of oversteer right up onto the curb. He hasn't lost an awful lot of time though, even though he didn't seem to carry quite as much speed through that turn. He's still been successful with the slipstream on Yuri Vesluzul. Now that's coming down quite rapidly as they reach the higher gears. It's not great acceleration for the Bentley, but the straight line speed is there when they have the slipstream. Under braking though, once again, Yuri Vesluzul just not able to get past. Once again, Tom Kapusta not able to get past Yuri Vesluzul with those brakes. It seems that BMW is pretty decent into quarry, and he's going to be holding Tom Kapusta behind him for now. We've also got Bob Slobosian closing up a little bit behind them. He's not too far back, and he is in that Volante Racing Aston Martin, so they're going to have to be careful, because if they keep passing, they're going to be slowing both themselves and the other car down enough, and Bart Slobosian might try and capitalise on that and take the position of both of them, which is something we have seen before in the GT3 Endurance Series, where two cars will be battling and then someone will just rock up behind and take both positions. However, around this track it's a little bit more difficult, because there are only really those singular opportunities on the lap to take those, to make overtakes, although don't want to rule anything out, because you never know what can happen. And we've got Jonathan Provost now behind, with Fernando Zarato behind him. It looks like that pushrod car seems to be applying a little bit of pressure, and this is the car I think that he passed, or that he attempted to pass through the chase a couple laps ago, when we saw the infamous moment with that quotation to accompany it. But right now, Jonathan Provost is clear of that BMW and beginning to extend that gap a little more.
Yeah, you're saying about, sometimes you can have an opportunity where you suddenly have one driver overtake two. We've already seen that on this race, in this race so far. But Kapusta, interestingly, he closes up at this part of the track, but over the top of the hill, always coming down through the elbow, he's always lost the time. But here, he's gained the time once again, getting in attacking position, coming down the inside into turn two. He's got the exit that seemed to come out of nowhere, actually, as Vesluzul, a little bit of contact, a little bit of rubbing there coming into towards the braking zone. But can Kapusta make the move stick into turn two? Yes, he can. And that sort of came out of nowhere, actually. Vesluzul not on the best exit out of Hell Corner, the first corner of this track, and Kapusta is through. But can he pull away? Because the last couple laps we've seen him actually lose time over the top of the mountain, and that's the quite interesting part of this track. Obviously, it's got two completely different parts of the track. You've got a really tight and twisty one where you really need some bravery, but then also the other half of the track is pretty much just straight lines and a couple of chicanes. So you have to obviously balance out where you set up your car.
Code 80 in 10 seconds.
Ooh, as we're getting code 80 in the background, so someone has gone off. There he is. Who is it? Is that David Mocek?
3, 2,
That's David Mocek and
code 80 enforced.
Who's Michelle? They've had a battle, so we had a fight for the lead somewhere, and David Mocek has now hit the wall. So there's definitely been some big things happen here for the fight for the lead. We're gonna have to get a replay of this one, but Christian Michelle, I believe, no rear wingers. Mocek, he's stuck in. Oh, that's going to be game over. That is going to be game over. He's going to be stuck in that barrier unless he can pull it out. But I am very sure he's going to be stuck in the barrier there. with how it works. But there's obviously been something quite major happen here between the Nita Velox and the Burst Esport, and that could prevent Burst Esport winning the championship today. So we'll have to find out and see what happened there, because that was quite an interesting one, Hugo.
That is certainly interesting. I think we're going to get a replay now. So, yeah, it was Christian Michel going down the hill. Oh, he just had a bit of oversteer, didn't quite catch it into the barrier, lost the rear wing. You can see David Mroczek behind him, and down the hill without that rear wing, you just don't stand a chance, straight off into the wall, and there's nothing Mroczek can do, straddling the path, and that's wheels off for the driver. And that is really a big shame for David Mroczek, trying to spin it round again, and
Mroczek's only got 3 wheels there. I think it's his rear right that is gone. Or maybe it's his front right. One of his right wheels is gone, which is why he can't really turn. And then you'll see when he gets to this right-hander, he's fine. Then he goes into the left-hander. There's no wheels on the right-hand side. And boom, straight into the wall. And unfortunately, he gets stuck in the wall. And I'm pretty sure... I need to see if I can see it on my screen. But I'm pretty sure... that might be him out of the race. So that actually looks like he's going back to the pit lane with 3 wheels on his wagon. So Mroczek has got back out there, and he is got going again. But he's going to lose a lot of time. And the only good thing about that for him is that the Nita Velox is going to be losing time as well. And currently Burst are only in 4th position despite all of that time loss. So they're quite lucky with the Code 80 in that fact as well. But we're going to have to see how this one works out, because this is going to be big damage repairs for both of these cars, and that could be quite important, not only for the championship, but also just for this race in general, which leaves the door open to Rory McDuff and his team. Despite having that penalty earlier on, they might be looking at a good position today. So let's have a replay. Very unlucky there for David Mroczek. You can say in hindsight it looked like he chose the wrong way, but I think in the moment in the car, most people would have done a similar situation there. And yeah, that's not a nice situation for him to come over Skyline there. Let's take you through the results as we stand. So we've got Christian Michel leading the way from Rory McDuff. However, both of them are into the pit lane. Georgie Nadev in 3rd place there. Then David Mroczek, who we've just seen having some issues. Nico Barkley there, who's in a slightly different strategy to some guys around him. Then Ludovic Ferrari.
Come back to green in 10 seconds.
Rodrigo Larito for Blackbirds there in 8th place. Leon Bock in 9th. And Capista in 10th place. As we are coming back to green flag racing. And Mroczek is obviously only just back in the pit lane now. So there's going to be a lot of time loss here, as he's also missed his pit box due to the fact that he had no wheel. His braking zone was a little bit increased as well. So this is a horrible moment for Burst Esport and also Cetra's Nita Velox. So this is going to be quite an awkward one, quite an awkward situation to source out.
Yeah, now you've got the number 16 Nita Velox gone with Joachim Stesnes at the wheel. He's exiting the pit lane, yet he is still in 1st place, which goes to show the situation of the drivers. We've got Georgie Nadev with Go Team Racing currently in 2nd, but he's requesting to go into the pit. He'll be stopping soon. Of course, the Code 80 has stopped, but that is major scenes. And really, all that Burst had to do this evening was get to the end of the race in a decent position, but that's going to heavily scupper their plans. There's major damage to that car, and you've just got to feel bad for them there, because that is incredibly unfortunate, and it could mean that they're going to have to wait until perhaps Suzuka to try and wrap up this championship. And you can see behind, we've got the Scuderia Mascala car really having a lot of snap oversteer on the downhill part of the track. Multiple occasions there was a big drift there that one of the Mascala brothers managed to capture. That was Christian Mascala there at the wheel. But we have got pretty much halfway through the race at this point. And I've got Bart Sabosian and Yuri Schlusel in front. So Heat 9 actually right now for the core team BMW, but the Volante car will be looking to try and find a way through at some point. But this is really interesting to see just what will happen at the end of the race. We've already got different strategies, and now we've had that incident which involved second and third place, which is obviously not what they will have intended. And well, you can never really intend a crash, but it is just such a major incident that is going to have such a large impact on the outcome of the race and potentially on the championship. This could perhaps be the worst finish for the Bathurst Esport team this season so far, which is just going to be hugely disappointing considering how robust they've been, and to be caught up in an incident that wasn't really their fault. I mean, they say aim for the rear of the car when an incident happens, but there was really no way through for him.
And to add insult to injury, I know obviously he got in a lot quicker, but Christian Michel is back out into the race with Davin Mrocek still sitting in the pit box. Obviously, Mrocek did get to the pit box about 10-20 seconds later just because of where they were on the track, but yeah, not the best day. And I do wonder, obviously, maybe there'll be a penalty for Nita Velix for that one, maybe. We'll have to see how that one works out after the race. But obviously, if there is a penalty, that would then, as we know, be for next race. There would be a drive-through or whatever for at the beginning of the next race. So it doesn't impact this race or this result, which in some ways is a little bit frustrating for the likes of Bathurst Esport, but fortunately for them, for the championship, because remember, winning the championship does get you €500. So it's a nice little amount of money there for them to be winning. So they are going to be wanting to win it, and fortunately for them, they will have a couple of attempts at it in Suzuka, as we see Mrocek now getting away all four wheels on his wagon. Quite a long stop, and now he's going to have to try and claw something back, but he's coming down in 22nd place. Points do go all the way down to P30, so he will get points, but not ideal to be down there in 22nd place. But fortunately for them, Evolution are only in 7th place at the moment.
I feel like I have to say black flag to number 30. You're missing a wheel, mate.
Black flag to the number 30?
That's
so that one is the
Mika Hakkinen, number 17. Nita Velix. Apparently he is. He's requested to return to the pits, and that's his car right now. Yeah, that's the front right wheel.
Mrocek's wheel got replaced, which should happen. That is a that's part of it. Part of R-Factor 2. When you do a full repair, you will get your wheel and suspension back, but it seems like for whatever reason, maybe they didn't select it. Maybe Michel didn't select it in the pit menu when he came in. But either way, Hakkinen now is going to have to go back in and get some damage repairs and see what he can do. But that is the I don't want to say karma, but that sort of thing, because obviously now he's then going to drop back behind Burst in this race. But obviously it's not nice to see either of these two contenders out. So that does leave in first position the other Nita Velix, the number 60 that Rory McDuff did such a good job in despite the penalty. They are now leading the race by 10 seconds from Georgi Nadev, and then another 20 seconds back is Nico Barkley. So we could be looking at quite an interesting podium here as we are now into the second half of this race.
Number 82 core team is out of the race. That's Roman Prickwell out of... he was at the wheel. Currently not racing, and they've gone off on track, I think. I'm not sure if that's a potential disconnection. They might be able to get going again. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, that's really unfortunate for them.
Hakkinen has pressed escape. They have DNF'd from the race. They obviously thought it was too much damage, or maybe they just couldn't repair the wheel for whatever reason. So they're out of the race now. So that number 30, which is currently sitting decently in the championship as well, but today they're going to be out of the race. They're currently 4th in the standings, only 1 point behind Go Team Racing. So that was going to be quite a good battle for the 3rd place in the championship. But it looks like Go Team Racing, all being well, are going to be getting a decent result here today. So that's going to be huge for them in their championship bids. We're getting towards that top 3.
This is Roman Prickwell with the core team outfit, BMW, and it looks like we might have a similar situation to that. It's just clipping the inside wall there, maybe a bit more than a clip, but yeah, looking the wrong way. That is really dangerous place to be sat as a result of that. And maybe Pappinen decided to retire because it was a black flag. That is what Mr. Jacobs said, the race director. So maybe he had no other choice, but also in the position they were in with the repairs they had to do, there wasn't an awful lot of chance left for them. But this is going to be Bojan. He went to the outside. He's moved to the inside for the chase. He will be under brakes. It will be the outside line for the first spot of the chicane. There's a bit of contact, but he will have the inside line to try and hold on to that. And look at that, round the outside as well. That's a Corvette. Onto the grass it goes, and this is some really goes fasting between these three drivers. It's Jurva Struzal once again on screen. That's David Mroczek behind, actually trying to unlap himself and actually going onto the grass. So that's going to be an excursion again to add to the count, and that's going to drive them ever closer to a drive-through penalty, which would just add to the miseries of the championship leader. On the exit though, he's got a lot of speed. As long as he can get past Jurva Struzal, he should be fine to continue if he can extend that gap a little bit more. But it doesn't seem that the slipstream is ideal. In fact, he's going to squeeze past there. I think Jurva Struzal, maybe a slight lift considering how fast he rocketed past. And yeah, just giving that position, knowing he's not going to be as quick as David Mroczek, and decide not to waste time trying to battle for that position. But yeah, 20th place. It's a long way up for Mroczek to try and regain some of these places. He's still got about half of the race to go though, so there's opportunity for him to try and gain at least some points, but I don't think he's going to gain the magic 16 over Evolution Motorsports to wrap up the title this evening.
Yeah, that's just a situation for Vizduzu where Mroczek's clearly quicker than him in that situation, and you might as well just let him go. We've seen this in a few races quite recently, and I think Jimmy Allison's actually sort of reiterated the point in the IRRs, is that if someone's behind you and they're coming to unlap themselves and they're clearly quicker than you, just let them go. Like, yeah, it's a little bit annoying to be unlapped, because then a person on the lead lap, for instance, is then effectively losing that time, that half second or a second, but then just let them go and just make everyone's race a little bit better. And now Mroczek can go on about his day and trying to get, I think that's Joy Racing now in 19th place with Simon Marshall, that David Mroczek's now trying to overtake there, and I think he's actually just got him. So Mroczek there getting past for 19th place. He's now on the back of, I believe that's the Volante car, who's obviously a lap ahead as well. But if they want to play a bit smart as well, play the long game, and it's probably a good idea just to let David Mroczek go through, as he is obviously on fresh tyres and everything at this moment in time. And there he goes there. So still in 19th place, as that is not full position. That is him trying to unlap himself and get something back. But already into 19th place, and still with well over an hour to go, I wouldn't be surprised if they get quite a lot higher, although he does have 51 seconds ahead of him now. So he's got quite a lot to do. But in an hour and 23 minutes with the race winning pace in that car, I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe gets towards the top 15 or so.
Yeah, and what's quite interesting actually is that core team, the number 62, they're currently running medium tyres. Let's look at Schramek at the wheel. The only car on track not running soft tyres at the moment. So maybe going for a double
code 80 in 10 seconds.
The compound. And we've got code 80 once again. There were yellow flags. I just saw yellow flags
5,
in sector 2.
4,
and I'm not entirely
3,
sure which car
2,
that is, but I'm sure
1,
we'll see a replay.
code 80.
Cameron Sansano has gone for a spin. What's that, like, nice camera angle there, watching him getting back up to pace, or I say back up to pace, back up to 80 kilometers an hour, as that is obviously the situation when it's code 80. They have 10 seconds to slow down to 80 kilometers an hour, and then they have to, the whole field, every single person has to put on the pit limiter and sit there at 80 kilometers an hour. And you can see just ahead of him now, Leon Bog, after all of this, is now up into 6th place. And that is a nice position for him in Evolution Motorsports. And with the way it's working out, if they're gaining points on Burst, they might then, with a good result in Suzuka, be able to prevent the title until the final race of the season, which would be quite cool. So let's see what Sansano does. Oh, wow, that's an interesting pass to the corner there. Oh, a huge hit in the wall actually as well. And then goes for a spin as well to not help his situation. So, yeah, unfortunately, he's going to have a fairly long run back to the pit lane from there as well. And obviously, it wasn't a code 80 for another few seconds after that. But, yeah, that's not ideal for them because that was the final Speedy Mike car in a good position, and unfortunately for them, that has pretty much just gone out the window.
Well, what's interesting is that, I don't know if you saw, but just before his that incident, it looks like on the exit there was something that he ran over which upset the car, and you can see he just really struggled, and that's clearly why Sean Jacobs decided to bring out the code 80, because he was just struggling to get around. But we saw a slow motion replay of that on board once again, maybe just in the exit, it seemed like he ran over
Come back to
something
green in 10
on
seconds.
the outside of the track, which brought him towards that ball. It was a very
5,
interesting incident, but we are going to
4,
be going green
3,
again,
2,
and we'll be able to get
1,
racing
green flag.
on the way once more. So we'll see what happens now with the race. But as you were saying, Evolution Motorsports, they might just be able to delay that win, that championship win for the Bathurst Esports team until the very final race at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps at the end of the season. But we'll see how this all goes. But it just hasn't been working out for Speedy Mike. I think we can agree.
Yeah, not... Well, in reality, it's the season as well hasn't been the best. And if you remember last season, obviously this is the first season of the GT3 Endurance series, but last season the junior championship to the VEC was VLMC with the LMP3s and the GT3s, and Speedy Mike were very good there. And oh god, Ollie McGowan is going to see his own teammate just ahead of him go off there for a bit. Oh, it's his own teammate. Was it his own teammate that actually caused that second spin? It might have been with Ollie McGowan's contact there with Sansano. So that is not ideal, and that just puts salt in the wounds of Speedy Mike. As mentioned, they had such a good season last year with the LMP3s. I believe it was Luca Burke in the end who won the LMP3 championship. And there was also a number of other drivers. I think they ended up having about 5 LMP3s there. Big effort. They do like the LMP3 there, the Norma LMP3 there over in Speedy Mike. Unfortunately, this season hasn't gone the same way as that one. And once again, they come under some issues and some arguable luck in certain situations as well. As we now see, Anthony Maris in the Flying Goat is holding up Eros Mashuli for the Pescara ATP Auto Tyler Cup. And Eros hasn't been really much of a factor in the race so far. They struggled a bit in qualifying and then didn't really have the pace in the opening half of the race. But they're now looking at the verge of the top 10 as Omemwen gets a penalty to put even more salt into the wounds for Speedy Mike in this race. But yeah, Eros Mashuli getting close now for that battle for 10th place. But I believe he's actually getting lapped there by possibly the Go Team Racing car.
So we've got another DNF to add to the list. That's the Seawolf Nets race car with Rob Moore driving. He's out of the race. But I think, yeah, what happened with that Speedy Mike car was that it ran over a drain cover just on the right-hand side of the track. But yeah, you can see rejoining, clipped his teammate, the Ollie McGowan, and went off the track, which is very unfortunate. But yeah, I think the initial cause of that was him hitting what looked to me anyway like a drain cover, which is what upset the car, which is really interesting because no one else seems to have had an incident at that part of the track, because it did look very strange the way it just decided not to grip anymore. But yeah, Eros Mashudi right now 11th place, just ahead of Christian Mascala, and these guys all doing a pretty decent job, it looks like. We've got other cars up ahead, and I think the Flying Goat team, they're going to be pretty happy currently in P10. There's a possibility for more positions if we keep having incidents this evening, seeing as there have been so many. And yeah, Magnus Karup in the Omicron Sim Racing currently 23rd. He's looking to try and regain some of that time behind some of the cars that aren't actually competing anymore. But we've got Simon Marshall. He's requested a pit stop. He'll be coming in soon. But I think we've reached a bit of a lull in the battle. You can see that, yeah, he just went over that, and that's what upset the car, which is really interesting.
Yeah, it seemed as he went into that left-hander, as you say, he went over that, and the car didn't quite turn left, and then he hit the grass, and then all sorts went wrong, as we know. So, yeah, I think the Speedy Mind boys would be a little bit disappointed with how the race has gone so far, but it's still an hour and 16 minutes left in the race for them to try and do something. But some people who are having a pretty decent race is Scuderia Mascala. They qualified pretty much last on the grid. They were right near the back with only a few people behind them, but they managed to get themselves up into 12th place. They've now got the second brother of Christian Mascala there in that 12th position, now getting close to Eros Mashuli and also on the verge of the top 10 with the Flying Goat there as well. Obviously that car ahead of them is Nedev for Go Team Racing. But this battle for 10th is going to be a nice one over the next few laps, because all three of these cars really are having some decent performances. Pescara have been a little bit up and down during the season, and they've often been around sort of the 10th place. But yeah, this is going to be a good little battle, I think, over the next few laps.
Yeah, and I do think that some of these guys, that Tom Capusta right now, that Revo satellite car also having an excellent race so far. They've gained 11 places from the start as well, currently sitting in 7th place, and I think that is the nature of Bathurst, because it is so ruthless to those that make mistakes, and also involves some innocent third parties as well. Because of these barriers, we are seeing quite a shake-up of the usual order, and the result of that on the total running order is really interesting. Now, Joachim Stesnes is exiting the pit lane now. Georgi Nadev in 2nd place will be pitting soon. But yeah, looking at Flying Goat right now, he's still got Anthony Maras at the wheel of that Mercedes. He's got Eros Mashuli behind him still, and he's going to be looking to defend. He's got an hour and 14 left to do so, so with pit stops we might see things change a little bit more, and you can see right now the Pescara ATP Auto Tyler car closing up a little bit. But once again, you can see that Scuderia Mascala McLaren really likes to get its rear end kicking out a little bit on this downhill section. But along the straight, we'll see what the Mercedes can do in relation to that BMW and then the McLaren behind it. It's like Mascala's slightly further behind than he would like, but along the straight we're going to ride on board with the Pescara ATP Auto Tyler car, the position 11, Mashuli along the straights, and that gap doesn't seem to be closing down an awful lot as we head towards the chase. Having a sniff of that inside line way too far back to make a successful move, unless you're going to forget to brake and go straight on, as we've seen a couple of times this evening. But right now, these two positions seem to be remaining pretty consistent. We've got Scuderia and Mascala, they're closing up a little bit behind Eros Mashuli actually through there. So that three-way battle is going to be interesting. We've got Georgian Nadev now. He is in the pits, and we'll see what position he comes out in. But Joachim Stesnes with Setres Nita Velox, the number 60 car, currently in the lead of the race. With 1 hour 13 minutes to go, they have completed 49 laps.
They're looking fairly nice for the Nita Velox car, or at least for this one. At least the number 60, currently 5th place in the championship. And they're, well, obviously they're out of the championship in terms of the in terms of reality. They're a little bit too far away for anything really to make it work. But this is certainly going to be good, especially with Burst Esport getting very minimal points. Evolution are in not the best place either. This could put them in contention for maybe this third spot. Obviously, it depends where Go Team Racing are. Go Team Racing already in the pit lane with 1 hour and 12 minutes to go. That is a little bit early. 1 hour and 12 minutes is not going to be easy on a tank of fuel. That is going to need a tiny bit of fuel saving, I would say. 1 hour and 10 minutes, so maybe another lap or two, and they would be fairly decent to go to the end. But I think this is going to be a tiny bit of a stretch for Go Team Racing, so we'll have to see if that one works itself out in their favour. The Go Team Racing have just got more and more points as the season has gone along, and this could be another improvement for them. But that final stint's actually going to be quite long, so maybe they'll be losing a little bit of time, which again will put some more emphasis on the fact that this race is quite important for that number 60 Nita Velox, because they will obviously be gaining a fair amount of time, a fair amount of points I should say, on the likes of Burst Esport and Evolution, who are ahead of them in the championship.
Yeah, because as you say, it may not be the lead of the championship that is in direct contention right now, but there are still other positions to deal with. I think we might see a bit of a shake-up of that as a result of this interesting race. We've got yellow flags in Sector 2 right now. They're going quite quickly. We've got Cortine in the pits at the moment. That is Yuri Vesluzel at the wheel. I'm not sure if he's going to be staying in that car for now, because I think he's been in it for quite some time at this point in the race. But we have still got Pescara ATP Auto Tyler P10 with Eros Mashudi. He just isn't finding a way past Anthony Maras, and I do think that the Mercedes is looking much stronger today than it has previously in the championship, and they have been turning up to almost every race. I think they only missed Silverstone did this the Flying Goat outfit, and right now they're going to be pretty happy with where they are. This will boost them in the lower stages in the championship, where it tends to be closer, because those teams that don't always perform at the very top, there's lower increments between each position in terms of points, and that means that the battles within the championship itself can be very close. Although saying that, Mashudi right now is closing up quite a lot. You can see in the top right of your screen the onboard camera of his car, and you can see as they head down the hill now what the result of this battle will be. And I think we've got Christian Muscala. He's pretty much just chilling behind this battle, maybe waiting for those two in front of him to have their individual battle, and then try and sneak past both of them if they have a slow turn at some point, where they potentially go side by side. Although at the moment that doesn't seem to be what's happening, because Mashudi has had a fantastic exit off the dipper. He's right up the gearbox of that Mercedes. He's going to move to the left hand side. It will be the outside for the right hand kink of turn 20, though into the chase it will become the inside after the braking zone. If he can put it off onto the grass goes Anthony Maras, and he's had to concede the position, and he's going to have to look in his rear view mirrors now, because Christian Muscala is going to start to apply pressure. He's been sitting back, and it looks like he's going to try and have a sniff of that inside line into the final corner, Murray's corner that is, as they head towards Hell Corner for turn 1. What will be the result of this battle between these guys? Well, it looks like it's going to stay as it is for the time being. There's yellow flags in Sector 1 up ahead, so they're going to have to be careful as they roll through that sector to not have any incidents. And now what is interesting is that Jonathan Provost in Undercover Sim Racing, they're currently in 12th place, it looks like, so having regained some of that time. But Christian Muscala off onto the grass. He goes, there's contact under braking as he moves back to the inside. That was very risky and could have ended a lot worse than it did.
That was almost a massive accident. It was on the grass and he was trying to get back on the tarmac in the braking phase, but that was very close to a big accident. Maris is quite lucky there actually to be continuing in the race, and Mashudi there previously making a nice move as well. So Pescara having a fairly solid race again, but nothing too special, as we now see Sebastian on the back of Costa. We've seen this Aston Martin struggling to make some overtakes actually during this race. So Costa now, can he hold on, is really the big matter for him. But I would say it shouldn't be too difficult for him with that Volante racing car actually struggling to overtake a little bit so far this race. And now we see Muscala now getting on the back of Maris. Can he get close enough as we come onto the Conroy straight once again? We saw him be quite late on the brakes into the quarry corner, but now into the this part of the track. Going to see if he can get close enough, but I don't think he can actually. That's a little bit too far away really to make a move. So Muscala needs to build this one up, and then once again we might be seeing a move into turn number 2. But I think he's going to have to sit there just for now. But if he uses his racecraft, he'll be able to do what the likes of Roy McDuff did, where you get them offline at this part of the track, and you get a nice little undercut there coming up the straight out of turn number 1. It looks like he's actually got himself in a decent position, so he's going to look down the inside. He's actually going to try and outbrake him into turn number 1. Is he going to go a bit wide and slow himself down? Yes, he is, just a tiny bit, but I don't think that Maris is going to have an easy overtake here as Muscala holds it to the inside. We'll have to keep himself to the inside, then be decent on the brakes, but it looks like he's got just enough top speed to hold on, as Serato there for, I believe, Pushrod Racing has got a penalty, so he will have to be coming in as we now go back to this battle for P7.
Yeah, we've got Bart Slavosian right now on Tom Kapusta for Revo Satellite Racing. Now, this has been boiling away a little bit, I think, and we've moved up to it now. And what's going to be interesting is that they have got to be careful a little bit. Actually, no, they don't. They've got 24 seconds behind to Eros Mashudi, who's already cleared Christian Moscada by 4 seconds, who did do that really good move, which we just saw. But can Bart Slavosian get that position? He's currently half a second behind Tom Kapusta, and we know the Aston Martin isn't excellent on the straights this evening. However, the Bentley, on the other hand, it's got good top speed, but not brilliant acceleration. So we could see something out of Hell Corner at the start of the next lap, because I think that's where we're most likely to see an overtake, or perhaps into Quarry. We'll see what Volante Racing can do right now. But as we head towards Murray's Corner, it seems that the gap is going to be 0.4 of a second. On the braking, the gap changing ever so slightly. A bit of oversteer, it looks like, for that Revo Satellite Bentley as they head along the pit straight, though, under braking. And we've got another code 80. I think that's the fourth one so far this evening, which just goes to show the difficult nature of this track. And you can see it there, the two drivers having to put their battle on hold whilst we await this code 80 finishing. We'll see a replay, I presume, of that incident that caused it, and that'll be emerging as soon as Eros Mashudi decides to pit to make the most of it. Of course, he'll lose less time than he normally would if he pits now.
He was racing in the pit lane as well, which is quite interesting. Maybe just trying to make the fuel number a little bit easier, because actually with the way the pit lane is here, you go a shorter distance through the pit lane, so you effectively will gain a couple of, maybe a second or 2 seconds, so then taking a bit of fuel wouldn't actually be too bad of an idea, as we are now just over an hour left in the race, which means anyone who is at pit entry surely is going to be coming into the pit lane, as this is effectively a free pit stop. But I believe the issue was for Serato. He had the penalty, and when I clicked onto him, he was really slow going into the pit lane, so he got the penalty maybe crashing before this. I think he already got the damage before he went into the pit lane, because ever since he left the pit lane he has been going slowly, and that is as far as I'm aware what the code 80 was called for. But I believe there might have been a incident before that at the end of his previous lap, as we're seeing Mashuli swap for Michael Francesconi, as Christian Mascala gets a penalty. That's not what he wants to be doing in his fight with Pescara. That is not good for him.
But yeah, this is Fernando Serato going into pit lane, going way too hot, and yet he's going to hit that outside barrier. Oh, that is quite a big one, actually. And I think that explains why he has been going so slowly, and the bringing out of the code 80, which we are still under, and that is a frustrating sight for Bart Slavosian, because he knows how tantalisingly close that 7th place is. They were battling pretty hard beforehand, and they're going to have to just be waiting for that battle to continue.
Something's happened to Burst Esport, because they are very slow at the top of the hill. I noticed Yannis Simicic is in the car now. I wonder what's happened. I think he's actually just slowing. Oh, I see. I think he went over the 80 kilometers now, so he is slowing down to basically redress the time that he gained from doing that. I also noticed another car, I believe it was Mascala actually, when he came out the pit lane, because the thing is, when you come out the pit lane, you naturally release the pit limiter to go up the straight, but obviously under code 80 you have to stay on the pit limiter, which is quite an unnatural feeling. So I believe that's what Mascala did as well. He's redressed and given up the time that he gained from that as well. So hopefully
go back to green in 10 seconds
for those guys, as we're now
5
Serato's made it to the pit lane, so we're now going back to green racing conditions,
2, 1
with only
green flag.
1 hour and a couple of minutes left in this race. And it's now getting to the point where The drivers obviously are making their final pit stops, and that Code 80 certainly helped a few of those drivers. Someone it didn't really help is Slobodsian, as they were on the wrong part of the track. So he now needs to, first of all, let through the Knight of Velix car without too many issues with Joachim there. And interesting, Costa there goes into the pit lane, missed out on that free pit stop, so did Slobodsian. So they're going to carry on for another lap. And unfortunately for them, their pit stop's going to be way longer, and they're going to lose out to the people around them who managed to make the pit stop because they were ahead of them on the track.
Yeah, and of course you can't serve drive-through penalties under Code 80, so that means that the Scuderium Scarlet car will have had to serve that again, and that's, well, it will have to serve that in a moment's time, but it did get past Eros Mashudi, or now it's Michael Francesconi in that Pescara ATP Alto Tyler car, a car that we haven't really been watching until this point in the race, but there you can see Christian Muscala now pulling into the pit lane to serve the penalty, and hopefully it will be the last penalty he'll be serving this evening as we enter the final third of this 3-hour race. Just 1 hour to go and a lot of racing to get done, and it's been a really interesting one. It's not what we were expecting. The order, if you were to look at it now, bears almost no relation to the order in previous races, because Bathurst Esports are essentially nowhere to be seen in that those top 5 places that we normally find them in, and they're just working on a recovery drive, having been involved in an incident which they were a third party to, but such is the way that Bathurst functions. And we've got Michael Francesconi though. He'll be looking to increase that gap to Christian Muscala. And speaking of which, we have Jerome Priolo now in the Flying Goat, having replaced Anthony Maras. He's behind Christian Muscala, who's just served that drive-through. At least drive-throughs aren't so impactful on this track as they are on other tracks, as we've discussed before, and that's why it doesn't seem that Christian Muscala has lost an awful lot of time as a result of that. But Jerome Priolo, if he can keep up, might be able to take that 9th place, but looking a strong position right now for the Flying Goat team, much better than they normally find themselves in. I think partly as a result of their machinery, which is somewhat neutralised by this circuit, because it is really only along the straights that you can make an overtake successful, and that's why their car, so long as you can keep a car behind you on the mountain section, you should be good to go for the most part anyway, and that's why we're seeing them in 10th position. Although it does look like Christian Muscala right now beginning to pull away a little bit. He's 11 seconds behind Michael Francesconi in P8, so we're looking to close up that gap though and potentially challenge him as we look towards the checkered flag now. But what is interesting is that Joachim Stesne is exiting the pit lane right now, is nearly a minute clear of Borja Milan in the Honoco car, which is sitting in 2nd place right now.
Yeah, it's obviously the way Code 80s work, you can easily gain or lose many seconds depending on where you are on the track at a specific time, but also with the pit stops and such. But it turns out that their number 60 has done a pretty decent strategy, and the only thing they did wrong was get a penalty in the previous race, which obviously hindered the beginning of this race. But so far they've been doing everything right with Stesnes and Rory McDuff, who was in that car earlier on in the race as well. They have got such a huge lead, but they are looking pretty nice for the remaining parts in this race. And interestingly, only the top 5 cars are on the lead lap. 5th place is Leon Bock for Evolution Motorsport, and he's, to be honest, he's almost going to be lapped fairly soon as well if he's not careful. But he's actually coming into the pit lane, so he will be lapped actually, because he needs to pass over the car to, I believe, Pascal Schmidt is going to be getting in that car for Evolution, and they are going to therefore be making their drive stop as Stesnes goes past that pit lane and puts a lap on Evolution. So it's now only the top 4 teams on the lead lap, which just shows you the pace of the top guys in this championship.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing to look out for, and it looks like well, we've been given an explanation as to why Christian Mascala thought the Code 80 had finished, and I think that's why he received a penalty, is that he went to for a splash and dash himself and came back thinking the Code 80 had finished when it had not. So that's obviously unfortunate, but we still have got 21 cars still in the running for the end of this race. So we've lost 6, but that's not too bad all things considered, although we have had some major incidents, lots of repairs for quite a few of the teams, and we're now seeing the effect of that with the number 60 Nita Velix car in the lead of the race. What we have been seeing is the Burst Esports car has been, with Jani Simicic, has been making its way back up the order, trying to unlap itself. It's currently on the 54th lap, whereas the lead lap right now is 56. So got a lot of time to regain, and right now it does look like on the rear left, I'm not sure if that's just the camera angle on that McLaren, that the rear left tail light seems to be slightly not working as much as the rear right. That might just be the camera angle, but it would make sense considering we've seen a few times where the rear end has struck loose and potentially it's clipped the barrier at places.
Omicron going slow there. I wonder if they've had an accident, as many have over the course of the race. 21st place, Magnus Cunner in the car, and 21st, unfortunately for them, is actually last at the moment. They're going slowly over the top of the mountain, which is not ideal for this situation, because that is going to be very tight as he comes through the twisty bits down the hill at the end, which is not, as we mentioned, not ideal places to be overtaking. And on the screen you're seeing Pascal Schmidt not quite keep up with Mascala. Actually, obviously Mascala's been in there for an hour, as Jani Simicic sets a new fastest lap of the race, go into the 2-minute 3-second. So that's a very nice lap indeed, and he's obviously pushing, trying to work his way up there in 16th place. He's got 41 seconds to the next car with only 54 minutes left in this race, so he's got plenty of work to do as Jani Simicic, but he's going to be trying his best. And we're now going to get a replay of Christian Mascala exiting the pit lane, and this must be where he just forgot about the code 80 and just speeds up. But I jumped on board with him here when it was live, and I was like, what's he doing? But then he does slow down fairly quickly by the time he gets to turn 2, when he realizes, oh, actually I'm the only person on the track who's going, and then he does slow down below the speed limit. But we'll see if that avoids a penalty, because obviously he's sort of trying to redress the time, and he did slow down all the way back to, I believe, the Pescara car that he was just ahead of. So he did try and give up that time, but we'll see what comes of that after the race. And they are obviously having a fairly decent race there, currently in 8th position.
Yeah, and what's interesting with Omicron is that it's just not been a brilliant race for them. They're currently in 21st place, but they're 5 laps down on the next car. It's just not been ideal, and really they've just been struggling with such a difficult track. It is fun, but it is definitely a difficult track, especially with 3 hours between them two drives to a driver. And we just saw Jonathan Provost get very close to the outside barrier there, trying to keep up with Ryan Nash in the Revo Satellite Bentley. You can see the difference there between the 2017 and the 2020 models of the Bentley Continental GT3. And down the hill there you go, you can see slithering all over the track is the Revo Satellite car, just trying to keep Jonathan Provost a safe distance away. But we know undercover sim racing can be quite a formidable opponent when they're behind you, and well, we'll see what Jonathan Provost can do. It looks like it's worked for now, with Ryan Nash pulling away a little bit, 9/10 of a second, definitely clear, but only just. We know that undercover sim racing can be very quick, even with Jonathan Provost at the wheel. We'll see whether he decides to push, because currently P12, having had an incident earlier on in the race, they've been trying to recover, and right now they're looking to gain the 11th position, which they had previously been quite far ahead of. But of course, the race Hasn't turned out ideally for everyone, and certainly not for Undercover Sim Racing. But we'll see how this all plays out. I mean, you can see in different parts of the track where the different strengths lie between the driver and car pairings, as along the very late part of the track there, about 0.3 of a second was gained by Giancarlo Costa. This is going to be an interesting battle to watch develop.
And also they've got the 2 different Bentleys. If you ever wanted to see up close and personal what the actual difference is between the old and the new model, it's obviously the newer one's just slightly more sort of slick and round and polished to many a degree. And obviously with slightly different headlights and tail lights as well. Yeah, Ryan Nash there, already on to that position. Let's see a replay here of the Revo Satellite getting a tiny bit of airtime as they come over Skyline. Very nice part of the track indeed. And I believe the Bentley as well, if I'm not mistaken, is the only right-hand drive GT3. I believe so. That is the case. So obviously the drivers, obviously European and international drivers aren't quite so used to the right-hand drivers. The British drivers are. So that may be a reason. For instance, Bathurst taking that car with Major. And now we come on to the Comrade Straight. And we can see that Provost are having a bit of a bad exit and isn't able to really close down too much. But look at the gap on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. It's actually increasing a tiny bit despite the tiny bit of slipstream. So maybe that 11th place Revo Satellite racing car either has a tiny bit less wing, or maybe just in general the way they've set up the car. Maybe it's a lot lower to the ground, but let's see what Provost here does. Is he going to bump the wall? Yes, he does. Bumps the wall there, and that is going to give him a tiny bit of steering damage, I would assume.
Yeah, and we know that Undercover Sim Racing car has already been in the walls, and bodywork damage might affect that straight line speed a little bit. I'm not sure what the situation is for Revo Satellite Racing, but right now they're keeping Undercover Sim Racing behind quite well. They've had a decent exit out of Hell Corner. That's going to give them an advantage on the lower speed, although as they reach the higher speeds, there is an element of slipstream in favour of Provost, but he's just too far back to be able to really make the most of it. So for now, he's going to have to hold behind. But this battle, I think it's going to be one that lasts for slightly longer than some of the other battles we've witnessed, just because of the pretty much equal footing we've got between the two drivers there. They seem to have a very similar pace. Although on the overall part of the lap, there's just a big drift there by Provost. But they seem to have a similar pace in the overall lap, despite being quick at different parts of the track. And that might be owing to set up a little bit. Now, this is where Provost hit the barrier ever so slightly earlier on. You can see that dreaded drain cover now on the right-hand side. You've got to turn in just before then. Otherwise, it seems that, as we saw earlier, you will get dragged off into the wall. And as they head down the downhill section, it looks like Provost has lost a little bit of time, but he is regaining it on this really my favourite part of the circuit, to be honest, because it is just you are one with the car, because you're more being driven by the car than you are driving it. You're just letting the camber and the elevation of the track carry you to the bottom of the hill. And then onto the Conrod Straight, and a little bit closer this time than he was last time is Jonathan Provost. But either way, Ryan Nash has got more straight line speed, so perhaps running a little lower wing is allowing him to pull away from this Undercover Sim Racing car. Well, not pull away, but keep that distance pretty much equal, and it is very interesting to see the different situations of these two cars. Jonathan Provost seems to get stuck to the curb a little bit on the left hand side as we head through Murray's Corner. On the exit there though, and although Provost is closing up a little bit through there, he just isn't getting the speed he needs, and unless he can slingshot through Hell Corner, he's really going to have to wait for a mistake from Ryan Nash if he's going to get this position. He's had a decent exit here, but once again it's pretty much equalised by the fact that Ryan Nash just seems to have a little bit more straight line speed, although with a bit more slipstream, having become a little bit closer this time round. Into Quarry they go, but it's still not enough to make that move work.
And with the damage that Provost has, that probably is hindering a couple of kph as well, just adding a tiny bit more drag. at the end of the straights, which is always, does he hit the wall again there? Maybe on the apex of the corner, a bit of an awkward camera angle to see exactly when he hit, but I believe there might have been a bit of contact, which won't be helping his situation, as getting a bit of straight line speed damage is very difficult to come back from, and you're just simply slower as well, because you obviously just lose time effectively on the straights. You're sitting there flat out. This is a nice little camera angle, actually, watching the downhill section of the track before we get to the final couple of corners, before we get to the elbow onto the back straight. And once again, Bathurst is going to get a nice exit, but just not enough top speed. And obviously, it's not just necessarily the wing angle that adjusts things, it's obviously the ride heights as well, and how you set up your suspension for that, how it compresses going along the straight as well. But it does seem that Bathurst is struggling a little bit there in a straight line.
Yeah, I think it's probably just a culmination of everything, which is why he doesn't have that speed he needs to overtake Ryan Nash, and he's going to have to just keep chipping away at that gap until he's in a position to make that move. But this is currently the leader, Joachim Stesne, is by still 52 seconds ahead of Borja Milan. And I'm not sure how strategy is going to play into that, but this is the second place car, the Monaco BMW, just heading up the hill now. It's a huge gap, and I think that they either both have no stops left or both have the same amount of stops left, so this could potentially be the finishing order. And I know my timing sheet is lying to me about how many pit stops people have done, because I know for a fact that no one could have made it this far into the race without having done a pit stop, so I'm not quite sure what that's about. But yeah, it's looking good right now for the Monaco car. The team that's experienced such woes now looking really, really strong. I mean, they've always been really strong, but this could be that redemption that they need of the so many unfortunate incidents. But we'll keep an eye on these guys, see what they do, see whether they can close up a little bit of the gap that they have ahead. I mean, they're 35 seconds clear of Mathieu de Croo in third place, actually. In fact, one move seemingly just chilling there in third place. I'm not sure where they came from. We've not seen an awful lot of them this evening. It's probably a good thing on their behalf. In fact, I think they're just behind this battle now. But Ryan Nash is beginning to come under pressure from Jonathan Provost in that undercover sim racing Bentley. In fact, we've got 3 Bentley train going on right now. Behind them on track, they've got Alice Playbear, but he's quite a way down the road from these two guys. Both Ryan Nash and Jonathan Provost are being shown blue flags. You got Mathieu de Croo, he's on board, but he's going to have to be careful trying to navigate traffic, because it's one thing to navigate traffic around Bathurst, it's another when the traffic is battling with each other. In fact, that's usually scary, because battling traffic is usually unpredictable traffic. And onto the grass goes Ryan Nash, and that's going to give Jonathan Provost his move round the outside if he can make it work. Mathieu de Croo is sitting as a spectator behind it. Around the outside he goes onto the grass, mounting the curb a little bit. Is the undercover sim racing Bentley, and it looks like Ryan Nash is just about going to have to hold onto that position. But will he let Mathieu de Croo through? Yes, he will. Will there be contact? No, there's no. But Jonathan Provost making the most of the traffic there, playing it really well. He's going to move to the inside. You can see just how close these are. It's like a New York road, just how jammed up they are going up the mountain straight into Quarry, and Jonathan Provost somehow taking 11th place, and that is the most unorthodox move I think we've seen so far this evening. Just played the traffic incredibly well, and that's going to be Ryan Nash down to 12th place with Undercover Sim Racing up into 11th.
That was a really nice move. Can't complain at all with that. It's just that's the situation with blue flags. You've got to sort of let them through, but when you're battling yourself, as you say, you don't want to just give up the position, as that makes it too easy. But instead, Ryan Nash did his absolute best, but de Croo sent it down the inside of turn number 1. I thought that was going to be a crash, but fortunately, Ryan had the wits about him to see that one and avoid a big contact. But then that obviously meant he couldn't get the exit, and Provost playing that really well, doing maybe a little bit of bump drafting coming out of turn 1. He was so close to de Croo. And that's something that we actually haven't really mentioned so far since he's got inside the car of Mathieu de Crop. Obviously, he's taken over from Ludovic Ferry, who has put that car in a very good position. They're currently sitting there in third place. I'm going to get a nice replay here. Now, this is going to be quite an interesting one, because here he's like, okay, I've got the run, so I'm not going to lift off for blue flags. I think Matt Nash was actually lifting off a bit for blue flags there, which caused the extra speed, and Provost getting in plenty of room. Nice racing here, but it goes a little bit wide, and then that gives the overspeed to De Crop, who then decides he wants to do both cars, so he's going to send it down the inside, and fortunately Matt Nash sees that coming, allows the room, but then Provost here has the position and also the slipstream, and maybe a tiny bit of bump drafting there to get himself up. So really well played, used the traffic and the situation to his advantage, and I think most people would be quite happy with that one, especially after the race as it's gone for those guys. Good to see some nice overtaking and some nice positions, but also for De Crop keeping that third place, 37 seconds behind Wanako though, and I believe they're on the same strategy, so that might be a little bit difficult, but we need to see what Knight of Alex do, because I think Knight of Alex will need to make another hit stop for a sort of splash and dash situation, if I'm not mistaken. Unless that other Code 80 helped them out, we will find out in the next few minutes. But if that is the case, then I might get a little bit close with Wanako. If not, then that is going to be a nice comfortable lead for them.
Yeah, now we've got Mathieu de Croo moving past Jerome Priolo, and this is the slow motion. This is going to be quite fascinating, because you see just the size of that diffuser. Lots of oversteer for Jonathan Provost, somehow managing to hold on to it as he's halfway straddling that curve. But he did manage to make it work with 40 minutes to go though. This is Joachim Stensnes, the leader of the race, with the number 60 Nita Velets car on the soft tires, of course. Mika Stramek with core team number 62, the only car on medium tires at the moment. And just the way strategy is going to play out is going to be one that we'll see relatively soon, if anyone needs to make any extra stops. Of course, we've had 4 Code 80s this evening, which have really changed around the strategy to the point where it's sort of hard to guess who is where really in the overall picture, and the way that's going to play out is certainly something that's everyone's going to have to keep an eye on. And what's interesting though is that at this stage in the race, only the top 4 are on the lead lap. So it's been a race of attrition for the most part, I think, with quite a few bruises taken here and there by some of the teams.
Yeah, bruise is a good word for Bathurst, but we can't say we didn't expect it. Was someone went, well, I didn't quite miss it. Was that Omicron going for a spin in the final chicane? It might have been. Certainly a car was around there, and that's not what you want to be seeing, especially when they're already, unfortunately, quite a few laps down. And yeah, Magnus Cunnerup is coming into the pit lane, so I do believe it was him. So let's have a look at the current standings with only 38 minutes to go. So we've got Cetros Nitavelex leading the way from Wanako with One Move Esports in third place. In fourth, we've got Go Team Racing, who are followed by Volante. Volante have had a bit of a quiet race in many regards, but they've just been slowly getting themselves in a good position. And also Blackbird's having a nice race there in sixth place. In seventh is Pescara, followed by Scuderia Mascala. Ninth is Evolution Motorsports, and then the Flying Goat is in P10. So, to be honest, quite a different top 10 to what we were expecting. There's a number of teams who've had massive issues, but again, we can't say we didn't expect that coming to Bathurst.
Yeah, it's definitely been a brutal one, and we've seen the effect of that on outfits such as Burst, currently in 16th place, and there's just the way that it has fallen for them. And I mean, we've still got races to go. We've still got Suzuka, and then Spa-Francorchamps afterwards. We've also got the Magnus Cunnerup, Omicron SimRacing, the only other car still running, currently P21. Then we've had the Seawolf Nesh race. They've DNF'd. Core Team number 82, Nita Velix, Speedy Mite, also Scuderia Basileir, and also Gabriel Bonacina with Caspian Motorsport as well has not made it to the end. Now, Jonathan Provost is looking to get into the top 10. Look at this. Down the inside then, on Jerome Priolo, that Mercedes doesn't seem to be able to match the Bentley around this circuit. And of course, Undercover Sim Racing making a recovery, having had not the greatest start. They are definitely pulling back some of these positions that they have lost, and that's going to put them up into the top 10. But Jerome Priolo now dropping down to 11th place, and he's going to have to be careful because just 2.5 seconds down the road behind him is Ryan Nash in the Revo Satellite Racing Bentley. So he'll be careful about that, and it'll be interesting to see what the relative pace is. I mean, Jerome Priolo, his last lap was 2:08.2, with Ryan Nash being a 2:07.5, so it does seem to be the advantage in favour of that car behind. There are yellow flags in Sector 1 though, and I'm not entirely sure when, as we've got Luigi Russo there, who seems to have taken an alternative line down the hill, but the yellow flags are still out, so I'll be interested to see how that all is going on. But Luigi Russo currently in 4th place with the Go Team racing car. Of course, I believe they are contenders for the championship. It's Magnus Kunnerup. So Omicron Sim Racing just having a nightmare this evening.
Yeah, I mean, with all due respect, they're 7 laps down, and it is good to try and get to the end of the race, but sometimes it is better to take the safe option, and going slowly over the top of the mountain again is not necessarily what they want to be doing. They're still going fairly decently, but that's definitely not at race pace, and the car is crabbing just a little bit as we jump to Blackbirds Racing in 5th place, Poundgarten in the car. And I would say this is going to be a very nice race indeed for this entry. P5 in this race, but they've struggled, well, quite a lot this race. They're 28th in the standings, and they haven't had many high points finishes at all, so it's going to be a good result if they can get to the end. I saw someone in the YouTube chat saying that this race is about survival, not just about pace, and that is very, very true. We're already up to the top 4 only being on the lead lap, so just surviving and just being somewhere close to the pace, you're going to be inside the top 10 and be getting some decent points. As we're going to get a replay now of Omicron going for a spin. They're already on the wall off to the right there, but now coming through the cutting. Are they going to go for a little bit of spin? Yeah, just loses the rear end. Too much steering lock put in, and the rear's come around, and he's actually gone for a half roll, but it's managed to gravity's brought it back on its feet, so very lucky to continue there.
Yeah, that was certainly not what you want to be seeing, either being in the car or being the one coming around that turn to be faced with a car on its side. But yeah, this race, Alexander Poundgarten with Blackbirds Racing, they've had a fantastic evening actually, because they have struggled so far in the championship, but just keeping on the track and out of the barriers seems to have been a very successful strategy for them up into 5th place. That's certainly, they're going to count that as an excellent finish. As you said, they're 28th in the championship. They're going to be very happy with this. They're going to get a good boost to the amount of points they're on. And of course, lower down the championship, as I said earlier, the gaps between the different teams are going to be a lot lower as well. So a large boost in points will really benefit them. So we'll see what they can make of tonight's race. So, Bart Sabogian in 6th place, 21 seconds off Blackbirds Racing with half an hour to go. Unless he's extravagantly quick, it looks like he's going to stay in that position. I mean, he's got more to fit from the car behind him. That's Michael Francesconi with the ATP Auto Tyler car behind, 5 seconds down the road though, so he's still relatively clear. And I think we are reaching that point in the race where, big oversteer there, just about caught it. But we are reaching that point in the race now though, where these gaps are beginning to extend. The strategy is being fulfilled, and it is really just reach the end of the race. That is what they're going to be focusing on, trying not to hit the barrier any more time. There's probably more than enough paint left on there to redo the whole livery of each car, I'd have thought, given the amount of knocks we've seen this evening, sometimes twice over. And we've had lots of repairs, and most of the cars are still going, despite two of them managing to lose their tyres. I think even more potentially, they're losing their wheels. They are still going. That's the Burst Esports car and one of the Nita Velux cars. So yeah, definitely an interesting one. We're actually one of those Nita Velux actually retired because the car didn't. They decided not to fix the tyre. Obviously, not on purpose. But yeah, they were black flagged by the race director, and they have since retired. But this is Michael Francisconi. He is gaining time on Bart Sabosian. That gap was briefly down to under 4 seconds. So we'll see what he can do if he can push hard enough just to clinch that 6th position before we see that checkered flag being waved in half an hour's time.
It's not too far up the road, so I would say this is definitely a possibility. They've had, as we mentioned before, they've had just a solid race, nothing too special. But getting up into that 6th place would be a nice result for them. Unfortunately, here with Christian Muscala, not having the best final hour of the race that he would have wanted, but still 8th place is really good. And he just needs to make sure that he can hold on from Pascal Schmidt behind. But I believe that he's been able to do that, because I think they were a little bit closer earlier on, but he's had some decent paces. Cunnerup gets another issue to his race, this time being a penalty. And yeah, that Omicron car now 8 laps behind. Not ideal really for them, and I'm sure they're going to be a bit disappointed with how this race has gone, but it is such a difficult track, and if you're not quite on it, it's going to be starting to struggle a little bit as we come into the final 30 minutes of the 3 hours of Bathurst. And it's been a very chaotic, interesting race so far, and we've had a number of Code 80s, which is quite an interesting one, because we pretty much haven't had a Code 80 at all this season, and even last season as well in BLMC. Very minimal Code 80s, because for the most part it's pretty good, but this track is just so brutal if you get it a bit wrong.
Yeah, we've amassed 4 Code 80s so far this evening. Still got half an hour to go. It's still a possibility, but I think Bathurst has made up for the lack we've had so far this season. And this is going to be, I think, an anomaly race for most of the teams. Burst Esport, they're not going to be finishing anywhere near where they'd like to be finishing. I know they wished to wrap up the championship and walk home with those €500 this evening. That's not going to be the situation though. They're going to have to wait for Suzuka or Spa at the latest. In fact, there is still the possibility of them losing the championship, although the likelihood of that is extremely low. Whereas, but some of the other teams, they're going to be very happy about the result of this race that is about to emerge.
This Flying Goats having a decent race again. Drops outside of the top 10, but still 11 places, nice for them. But you mentioned a few minutes ago that Revo Satellite were coming at them, and that is certainly the case with Ryan Nash in the, not quite in the slipstream, but definitely within the sights of the car ahead. And I think this battle is going to be forming, because Nash has been having a few fights here and there over the course of the time he's been in the car so far. I wouldn't be surprised if this is going to form into a battle. Having said that, Nash was a bit slower on the final lap, so the Flying Goat with Priolo in the car at the moment, it's still looking fairly decent, and Nash is going to certainly have to work for this one.
Yeah, he's got quite the job cut out ahead of him. 2 seconds as well is the gap at the moment, but it doesn't seem like this last stage of the race is going to be brilliant for Flying Goat. They're going to finish in 12th, which isn't too bad. It'll be a decent points boost. So we're going to have a replay now. I think we had yellow flags in sector 3 earlier, so this is going to be Fernando Serrato on the back of, I think that's the Revo Satellite Racing Bentley, into the final 10. He had a look at the inside line. It looks like he's just slightly outbroken himself. Yeah, and he's tried to get back on the racing line, but he's slung it a little bit too hard. Did manage to avoid the barriers, and fortunately it's just about wide enough on the pit straight to be able to turn yourself around. And yeah, we've got Ryan Nash now. He's closing up to Jerome Priolo. After that, there is a 10-second gap to Alice Paver, and core team behind him is Lucas Schramek. And yeah, we'll see what happens between these two guys. I reckon that Ryan Nash will take this position, but either way, the Flying Goat will be finishing in the top 50%. And they've done a good job this evening. They've just been consistent, and they've the reason they're ahead of cars that are normally much faster than them is simply because they have been staying out of trouble. And I think that's the same situation for a couple of the cars. For example, the Scuderia Mascala car up 17 places since the start of the race, which is just a phenomenal achievement. And it's sort of the opposite as to what's happened to Burst Esports. They're down 15 places, having qualified on pole position by 1/10 of a second at the start of the race, which was just so long ago. 2 hours 35 minutes since those green flags were waved. A lot has happened since then, and we're now looking at Alice Paver. So he's 8.8 seconds off Ryan Nash. So actually, he's gaining a fair bit, because a minute ago that was about 10 seconds. So potentially, if Ryan Nash gets held up enough by Jerome Priolo, Alice Paver could find himself in a position to try and take that position off Flying Goat as well, and potentially off Ryan Nash. You can see the last lap, 1.35 seconds faster was Alice Paver. So really putting in a shift as we enter these very final stages of the race. A couple of the teams have been into the pits. Joachim Stensnes is requesting a pit stop. I think he went into the pits very recently, so that's an interesting strategy decision. He's 53 seconds clear of Juanico with Borja Milan at the wheel of that car, so I think he should be safe to come in for an extra pit stop unless he does tyres. So that's also something to watch out for. We've had a few other people leaving the pits now. I think Alice Paver is actually planning on entering the pits at some point soon, so perhaps this charge will come to a premature end. So this is Lucas Schramek, the other core team car, actually a Corvette in comparison to his sister car. And this is the only car on medium tyres at the moment, and to be fair to him, is not awfully off the pace. Of course, his teammate pushing now did a 2:06.5 last lap. Right now, Lucas Schramek has done a 2:08.2, but he has been able to stretch these tyres a lot further than he otherwise would have, and that's beneficial towards the strategy, and that's why they're currently in 14th place, although they're not the fastest tyre, and there's a reason, I think, why most of the teams aren't using them.
So somebody's had a bit of an interesting races. Which is they're down in 10th place. We've got Undercover Sim Racing, and we thought we'd take a quick word with one of the drivers there. So we've got Remco Major coming into the commentary booth to have a couple of words. So Remco, you had a really good start to the race, and obviously you had that unfortunate incident at the top just as you started to come down over Skyline. So can you just explain what happened there?
I mean, I was completely surprised with the race pace we had, because in qualifying I was not there at all. It was like 1.7 seconds off, and then in race pace I was like a few tenths off, and then I decided to keep on pushing, which was not a very smart thing to do around here. So I touched the wall and got damaged, and a few laps later that damage decided to be, the end of me. Well, the end of me. We continued on, repaired it, continued on, and then Jonathan jumped in and is doing a very good job for some reason.
Were you not expecting it? I guess in the previous race he did lose a little bit of time compared to you, but you've both been making some really good overtakes, and you did mention, and I think it was on the forum, you said actually one of the best points about the new Bentley was the fact it was so good on the brakes, and we've certainly seen that today with a number of overtakes. So are you very confident in that area of the car?
Oh, definitely. The straight line speed is also very good, but an acceleration will really hurt a lot. So only at the end of the long straight we actually are able to get close, and that combination with late braking, we can actually do some good moves around here. And downside is the car is quite big, and around here that is a problem. But I mean, I can race around that, right?
Oh, indeed. So how have you found this track? Because obviously it's a bit of a standout track on the calendar. It's one of the more famous and more popular real life GT3 races, obviously with the 12 hours of Bathurst in the early part of the year. So is it a track that you like, and is it one that you got comfortable with, or was it a bit difficult for you?
I mean, I've driven a few Bathurst races and like in other simulators. I love it, but this mod is showing its age. Let's keep it at that. And when Jonathan and I started practicing, we were both like, "Yeah, this is not gonna be fun," and so we didn't care a lot. And we should have cared because we were properly quick, apparently. So. But again, it's such a fun track. Even if the mod is a little bit old, it's still so fun. Because on the limit, if you go over the limit, you're getting properly punished. It's like Monaco in bigger mountains with higher speeds. Pain.
And what do you think your prospects are with the final two races of the season? Obviously, with it being Suzuka and Spa, also two of the more important GT3 tracks. So how are you going to feel going into those two races?
Well, at least for Suzuka, I need a second driver because Jonathan can't make those rounds, and we don't have like a third driver yet. So there is a spot open for anyone watching who needs a drive. But
exactly. So if you're a driver without a team, get involved at Remco Major.
If you like big cars and like braking really late, join us.
I've actually just one question has come to my mind as you're driving the Bentley. Do you? I might have asked you this before, but do you like the right-hand drive, or are you able to get around that? Obviously, you're being European, you're used to left-hand drive cars. So how did you get used to it?
Ironically, Jonathan hates it more than I do. So because Jonathan is British, so he should be used to the steering wheel being on the wrong side, but.
The correct side.
The wrong side. It's definitely the wrong side. But I use VR. I get used to this kind of stuff really quickly. So, I also don't really notice a lot in like weight differences or like balance differences. No,
just drive.
Yeah, I just jump in and drive. Get used to it,
Well, it's been good to speak to you, Remco. And hopefully we'll see you in the next couple of races. So good luck, and hopefully you don't go for a spin in the next one.
Thank you, and good luck commentating on the last 20 minutes of this Code 80 Fest.
All right, thank you. Yeah, that was Remco Major, and as we've just seen here, Bart Sebastian went a bit wide, hit the wall. Now Michael Francesconi is getting up into 6th place there, so that's a nice move from Pescara. Not the best opportunity or the best time for Sebastian to be making that mistake. We're going to get a replay here also of Janez Simicic, who managed to make an overtake when we were speaking to Remco there a couple of minutes ago. Really nice overtake actually into this hairpin. It's got this sort of chicane before it, so if you take a little bit more speed, as you see there, took way more speed than the Trojan Donuts automotive car, and then he gets the move there coming out of the elbow as well. So that is Janez Simicic up into 14th place, and not going to be enough for the championship today, but it's going to put him in a good position to try and get that fairly comfortably in Suzuka in 4 weeks' time. Now we jump to Prevost, who's on the back of Pascal Schmidt. Evolution Motorsports not having the best race here today, 9th place for them, and I think they're going to be starting to maybe rue that penalty from last time, but in general they haven't quite had the pace here today, Hugo.
No, it's been a bit of an interesting race. I think we've seen different drivers show different levels of speed. I think as we saw in that interview with Remco Major, as my dog faced the commentary box, that they did have pace, but pace isn't the only thing around this circuit. It is also the just keeping it out of barriers, as was put by Andre Mascala earlier on in the chat, making it quite clear that this is really a race of attrition, especially. But we have got Lucas Schramek right now behind with Gasper Grabenk for Trojan Donut Automotive behind him. So this is certainly another battle. So we did see a slight period of not much being too close at that point, but then we saw that change, because we've now got Gasper Grabenk having a look down the inside, moving to the outside as they enter the braking zone, and still Lucas Stramek just about defending. And we're going to move to Pascal Schmidt right now, side by side with Jonathan Provost. That's the Evolution Motorsports BMW, now having to slide himself behind the undercover sim racing Bentley. Up into 9th place is Jonathan Provost. So we'll see a replay of Jene Simoncic on the Corvette. So this was a lap ago, a lap and a half ago, I think, and making some very brave moves. That's a late dive to the inside. I think the drivers know at this point in the race that he is gonna be quicker as Jene Simoncic in comparison to the other drivers. And oh no, Monaco are currently out of the race as a result of a crash, and I think that is we're going to see a replay of that now. So heading through the chicane down the hill, just didn't turn enough and into the wall. That's a humongous hit, and that is going to bring an end to the race 15 minutes before they were supposed to take the checkered flag at second place. And I think that's partially curse of the commentator.
Maybe. It's so annoying when you get this far into a race, this far into a difficult race. You're in a good position. You know, they had that second place, but you just went a little bit too fast over Skyline and has lost the rear wing. And it is one of those corners where when you see even these GT3 cars, you know, they're not the fastest cars in the world per se. There's many classes above this, but even when you see them go through that corner, you think, well, they're going way too fast, but they still make it. But on that one, he just went a little bit too fast. But now we're going to see Grabenk go to the outside of Stramek. He's going to have to do this on the brakes around the outside. They're completely side by side as they hit the brakes. Who's going to be later? It's going to be completely side by side, and Grabenk turns in a bit there, and Stramek goes for a bit of a spin. And Grabenk is actually going to hold on to that. Maybe one would say he should probably give that position back for sportsmanship. But it does look, or it did look like to me anyway, that he turned in just a little bit too early there. They were completely side by side still. And Stramek there not being given too much room, but on a replay, maybe an onboard replay, I have to see. But there was anything different to that. But I think Grabenk there just being a little bit too aggressive on the turn into that corner, and unfortunately caused that bit of a spin there. But we're going to see a replay now of Ryan Nash, and we got I can't remember who is driving that car at the moment. Alice Plever, that's it. Alice Plever going. Oh, but Matt Nash goes for a bit of a Ryan Nash, I should say, goes for a bit of a spin there and hits the wall, and that's not going to be what Revo Satellite want, because they were in a fairly decent position, but now they're going to be just a little bit behind, about 4 seconds behind there in 12th place, which is not ideal.
Yeah, this is it's interesting that we're beginning to see some mistakes emerging. It looks like the issue for Borja Milan was sort of hardware driven, as Lucas Stramek lets that Nita Venice car through. I think that's the race leader. So we're going to see a replay on board with Lucas Stramek, and this bit of a synchronized save between the two of them. So he had the inside line. Gasper Grabenk moved to the outside, and it looks like maybe just turned in slightly too much. Yeah, there was no room on the inside for Stramek to go. They both managed to keep it going, but it looks like maybe some steering damage to the core team Corvette. But yeah, Joachim Sensei's now 65 seconds clear of Mathieu de Croo, so it's been going fantastically well for the number 60 this evening. They are really quite far clear of that second place, and only the top three now, as a result of the loss of the number 3 car, are on the lead lap. So we are really seeing the effect of the length of a 3-hour race around Bathurst, and at least it's not a 12-hour race, because that would certainly be a very difficult job for these guys. to do. We've seen how difficult it can be in a 3-hour race. Of course, slightly different mentality. 3-hour race, more of a sprint race in comparison to those endurance style races. However, it's still a long way to go. They're saying that there's only 11 and a half minutes to go before we reach that final lap, and it has been a very intense race. I think this is Gasper Grabenk ahead of Joachim Stensnes, who really doesn't need to push at the moment now, because he is over a minute clear of second place. He has pretty much got this in the bag, so long as he keeps it on the track.
And what you mentioned about the race lengths is quite an interesting one, because 3 hours is a funny distance, because last season in VLMC we had only 2-hour races, so a lot of and also there wasn't a driver swap or driver change rule, so there's a number of drivers who are actually doing that themselves. It's solo entries. Whereas when it gets to 3 hours, you are starting to get into the realms of needing a couple of drivers. Obviously, I'm sure there's some out there who would happily do a 3-hour stint, but it is quite an interesting length. It's starting to get towards that endurance factor, and you have to, even around a track like this where it's that difficult, just to do a handful of laps, let alone 80 laps here that we're going to do today. You still got to take into account that it is a 3-hour race. You've got to have those extra couple of percent of caution and safety factor being taken into account, because as you say, it is a 3-hour race. You're going to be doing plenty of laps, and you don't want to be making a mistake. And it's quite interesting that we had the amount of DNFs that we have, because as you say, imagine if this was a 12-hour race, you'd hope that maybe they had a slightly different mentality, but some drivers are just pushing to the absolute limit all the time. And unfortunately, a few of them have made some mistakes as we now go into the final 10 minutes of the 3 hours of Bathurst.
Yeah, I think that's reflected by we just saw there Matthew Fennell and the car he was racing both hit the same barrier on the exit just a moment ago. But now we've got Alex Flavor on Jerome Priolo. This is for 10th place, so the Flying Goat team, now in 11th actually, as off ahead. I think that's the Omicron car just taking a detour off the track, rallycross style. It's not been a great race for Magnus Knupp and his teammate Giancarlo Costa, and they are in P21 behind Borja Milan in the Monaco car, and I'm not sure they're actually going to be able to make up that position to 20th, given that there's only 9 minutes left. However, Anas Flavor has got past Jerome Priolo, is currently sitting in 10th position, and it looks like he should be quite safe from the Flying Goat team. Now, Jerome Priolo will be looking behind to Ryan Nash, who we saw had an incident earlier, is in 12th. So apparently the Flying Goat car has a has some really bent steering, which is completely understandable given how long we've been racing around this circuit. So long as they can try and hold on to 11th place, they're 3.5 seconds clear. It's a bit of a gap to try and keep up, but we'll see whether he can succeed in that. But we're going to move to Fernando Sorato and Matthew Fennell. Can Push Rod Racing hold their current position 18, or will they lose it to Matthew Fennell and Speedy Mike? Speedy Mike trying to do a recovery drive. They started off so strong, all three cars really, and you can see on the left-hand board it tells a big story. But Fernando Sorato having a big hit on the outside wall. He's had a big drift. He's just about saved it, but he's blocked the track, so there really wasn't a move available for Matthew Fennell to take that position. So he has gotten away with it, but there is going to be some definite significant damage to the BMW in front of this Porsche right now as a result of that. And that's the second lap in a row that Sorato has hit that outside wall. So we will see what the result of that is on these two cars battling each other. We know the Porsche is quite strong in the straights, so we'll see he's closing up rapidly, and I think that damage might affect the straight line speed somewhat of Fernando Sorato. Down to half a second. It might not be enough by the time we get to the chase, but certainly on the exit we could see an opportunity arise for Matthew Fennell, perhaps into Murray's corner. So under braking they go on the exit of the chase. It doesn't seem to be an available opportunity for them onto the grass side. You can see the dust being kicked up by the push rod racing car. Luigi Russo getting a penalty at this late stage in the race. That's really unfortunate because it means he's not going to be able to try and recover some of that time he's going to lose in the pit lane. However, I believe through Hell Corner, if Matthew Fennell can get a good exit here, he might just be able to squeeze past for the 18th place. You can see him moving to the outside now. Good speed there on the Porsche. He might be able to get it before the braking zone. You can see that's a Magnus Kunnerup up ahead with the Omicron Sim Racing car. Matthew Fennell, though, passed before the braking zone given the straight line speed of the Porsche around this track. And straight line speed is of utmost importance, as we've seen so far. Unless your name's Giancarlo Costa and you like to overtake on the hill section. And once again, Fernando Serrato seems to be struggling for grip as he hits the barrier as well.
Yeah, that was an interesting part of the track because he came around the outside. Serrato almost lost the rear with the dirty air just kicking in. Well, fortunately managed to save that. And I just realised with that Wanaco DNF, that puts Blackbirds Racing up into 4th place. They're having such a good race. Unfortunately, they're too far behind that. Even with Russo's penalty in 3rd place, I think Blackbirds will still be able... Go Team Racing will still be able to hold on to that 3rd place. I think it's a little bit too much for Blackbirds, but even then, Palmgarten especially has done a very good job here for Blackbirds, and they're doing some decent pace at the moment. And although the pace has sort of dropped off quite a lot for the guys a bit further outside, with a number of the top teams struggling a little bit, such as Motor Velux, Wanaco, and obviously Burst Esport as well. Was having the absolute best days for them. Just an update on Burst Esport, now up into 13th place with Jerne Simoncic, 26 seconds behind Revo Satellite Racing, which is Ryan Nash that we've seen a number of times in the recent part of the race. And you see there behind Grabenk is actually the Blackbirds car, who is coming to put another lap on these guys. But it seems like Schramek is holding on to this battle for now for 14th place.
Yeah, and it looks like we've had some more brief yellow flags, and I think that's become quite a common sight now as this race has progressed. But Lucas Schramek, he is on a harder compound of tyre than Gasper Grabenk, who's behind him. The last lap, well, I'll check it actually once we get to the end of this one, makes a bit more sense to get a more comparative time. What's interesting is that the wheel of the Porsche, which is on the wrong side of the car, there we go, is circular, or mostly circular, in comparison to that of most of the other cars, most of them having an open wheel style. And I just think that it's more retro, the style of the Porsche GT3 wheel, and I quite like the look of it. But right now, Gasper Grabenk, he's got 0.6 of a second gap to Lucas Schramek. He's got essentially 2, maybe 3 laps left to do. Their last lap, so Lucas Schramek did a 2:07.8, as did Gasper Grabenk. So they're pretty much equally matched, despite the tyre compounds. And maybe the medium tyres playing into the hands of Lucas Schramek at this stage in the race, because these guys have all been on their tyres for quite some time now, and the limited wear might be of some benefit to core team at the moment. Although saying that, look how close Gasper Grabenk is getting through the mountain section. That gap very, very low. In fact, he's going to close right up, a bit of contact onto the grass. He goes just about staying off the gravel. That could have been very bad for Gasper Grabenk. Held onto it well though, and through the right-hander there, getting very, very close. That could have been absolutely the finishing the wrong way to what he intended. So we'll see whether Gasper Grabenk can take that position. 2.5 minutes to go though. He's running out of time to make this work.
Yes, certainly, with only 2.5 minutes left. I have to see where the leader is on the track, because obviously it's all about when they cross the line exactly, and therefore what how many laps they're going to do. So coming to the end of this lap is Stensnes, and he is coming across the line with 2 minutes and 20 seconds to go, which means we will have this and then one more lap unless he wants to slow down. He is leading by some 80 seconds. So he's got plenty of time to slow down if he wants to, but sometimes it's just easier to go and do another lap. So we're now going to see Grabenk. He's going to smash into the wall a little bit. We'll have to see. Getting all very close. Ooh, yeah, getting a little bit into that dirty air. Almost going off the track there, McPhillamy Park. That would have not been a nice accident at all. But Grabenk now still sitting in this position in the Porsche. Can't quite get close enough to Schramek for now. But he's got another 1 or 2 opportunities on this back straight. Depending on if Stensers slows down or not. And it looks like he's getting close enough, but needs to keep this speed all the way up over the hill, because we know it's a little bit difficult to overtake on this part of the track. But then once you get to the final part of this hill, that's where you really need to be close to get a move down that back straight.
Yeah, and it does seem that Gasper Grabenk is able to follow close, and we're seeing that now. He can really goes up. Can he go for a move round the outside? He's getting desperate as we get towards the very late stages of the race. He knows he's only got a minute to try and get this position. My timing screen is flashing because there is such little time left, but Gasper Grabenk hitting the barrier. There's a slow car somewhere, so the guys have been warned. Down the inside, through the dipper, getting his nose right in there is the Troy Andona automotive car, but there is Magnus Kunner up there, the Omicron Sim Racing Aston Martin, almost scuppering the plans of Gasper Grabenk, who's going to move to the left-hand side. That Porsche power is going to play to his benefit as he goes round the outside of Lucas Schramek into the chase. Can he make the position work under braking? It looks like he's just about going to succeed, and that was a very intense lap there from the Trojan Donuts automotive team across the line. It looks like we're going to have to go for one more lap, because Joachim Stesnes, although he has an 82-second lead, is going to decide to continue for one more. So this is the final lap, but we're going to ride on board with Joachim Stesnes right now. Very scary for the race leader.
Wow, good thing he was looking far enough up the road there to have enough time to react. That could have been very bad. I dread to think the reaction, what that would have been. Unfortunately, as Kunnerup is coming back to the pit lane, and they are some 14 laps down now. Yes, 4 laps down, not being the race that they would have wanted. As you mentioned though, Bathurst has been such a difficult track, but one team that has done that correctly is this number 60 Nita Velux car. So far, at least. He's still got to do another half a lap, and it's certainly not the easiest half lap in the world. He has some more traffic up ahead as well, and he looks like he's taking just a little bit of extra caution through this part of the track, not doing anything too crazy. It seems he's leaving a little bit more room here and there to the walls, but certainly pushing, just not quite to the absolute limit. But now he's just got one chicane and one left-hand corner to go. But this has been a very good result for them. Obviously, Burst Esports struggling with the crash with the other Nita Velux car earlier on it as well. Evolution not being up to pace today, and also Wanako having a bit of a spin there later on in the race with Borja Milan. The race has sort of fallen into their laps a bit, but apart from their drive-through penalty earlier from last race, they have not put a single foot wrong in the 3 hours of Bathurst, and with a couple of cars letting them through because they don't want to do another lap, it's going to be Joachim Stesnes coming out of the final corner for Cetres Nita Velux number 60, and they're going to be putting themselves in a good position to potentially even get second place in the championship with still 2 races to go of the season. So congratulations to them. Really good race, and you cannot argue with them really deserving this race. No mistakes at all, and really good pace. But then you have to wait some 80 seconds because Hugo, this gap has got very big over the course of the race, and there's only going to be 3 drivers finishing on the lead lap.
Yeah, and as well as that, Fernando Serrato has retired from the race. That's the pushrod car. I'm not sure when that happened, but that did happen. But Mathieu de Croo, that's such a long gap, and I can't help but think that something must have happened because it was 65 seconds. It dropped all the way down to 80, although it is closing down a little bit more. But yeah, as well, one move, just keeping it out of trouble has enabled them to ascend up to second place. They're going to be really chuffed with the result tonight. And yeah, we've got quite a few cars coming across the line. We've got Alexander Palmgarten in 4th place for Blackbird Sim Racing. They're going to be very pleased with that. Michael Francisconi with ATP Auto, Tyler Pescara car there finished in 5th. Bots Bojan, Jonathan Provost, Christian Pescara finishing quite close to one another. But here comes the 2nd place car. Across the line is Mathieu De Croo, and a well-deserved 2nd. And a well-deserved win as well for Joachim Stensnes and the number 16 Nita Velos up at the top there. We've got Luigi Russo, who actually had a drive-through penalty not too long ago. He's going to come across to round out the podium for Go Team Racing, heading towards the chase for the final time this evening. And it has been a very difficult race for a lot of the drivers. There's going to have been some disappointment, but also a few happy faces. I know that Jerome Priolo with Fine Goat, they finished in 11th place, so I'm sure they're going to be happy with that. It's not an awful finish, but there goes Luigi Russo across the line, and that is your race winner.
Well, nice little drift there at the final corner for Joachim. We now have Joachim and Rory to bring you to the commentary booth for a little interview to the race winners. So we'll start with Rory, because obviously you started in the car, you had that drive-through penalty, but you started to make some really good overtakes and you managed to get yourself into a good position. So how was that first stint for you?
Yeah, it was a fun first stint, actually. We were thinking that we would be a little bit further down than we actually were after the drive-through. Ending up in 7th was actually really good. And I think that's down to the P2 in quali. Definitely helped us out quite a lot. Otherwise, we would have lost a lot more time than we did. And
Joachim, as well, you ended up having a little scare with 1 lap to go. There was a
oh my god
at Skyline. How was that for you?
As you probably could imagine. I mean, 1 lap to go and you have a car going like without a wing back and forth on the track into the chicane. Yeah. Oh, that was scary, but man. I'm so happy. Oh, damn.
Well, you've had a very good result today, and with the likes of Evolution, obviously your teammates, and Burst struggling a little bit. Also, you beat Go Team Racing. I think you might, don't know if you got 2nd in the championship, but you're at least going to be in the fight for 2nd in the championship with a couple of races to go. So what are your expectations with Suzuka and Spa?
Expectations. I mean, it's been pretty difficult, not gonna lie, this season. We've had some ups and downs, but I mean, expectation is that maybe, I don't know, the expectation now is trying to match this result, obviously. I think, but yeah, it's been difficult, I think, for the whole season. So we'll see what we can do.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you think? Because obviously there was a little bit of unfortunate situations with, as I mentioned, your teammate in Burst, for instance. So do you think you'll be able to fight them in a situation where all 3 of you were finishing the race?
I think provided we don't get any penalties, which we didn't do anything to warrant penalties, barely any contact all race, we'll be able to fight for the top. Because all season, this car in particular has been dogged by penalties. I think we've had 1 every race except for 1, maybe. So hopefully we've got that behind us and we'll be able to fight for the win in the next races as well.
They certainly did a good job today. So congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're only the 3rd car to get a race win this season with the dominance that Burst have had. So yeah, good luck with the final 2 races.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
And here on the screen, you can see the rest of the results. So we've got 1 move there, finishing in 2nd place. Go Team Racing in 3rd. 4th is Blackbird's really, really good result for them. Then Pescara in 5th. Volante in 6th place. Undercover in 7th. And then Scuderia Mascala in 8th place. Evolution Motorsports, very disappointing day for them. A lap off the lead as well in 9th place. They'll be looking to do better next time out. And then Alice Plever taking out the top 10. But Hugo, that was certainly a very eventful race, let's put it that way.
Yeah, that was full of twists and turns, much like the circuit itself. We didn't really know what was going to occur when, and certainly a few scares. And yeah, some teams are going to be pretty disappointed. For example, the guys currently who finished 13th, you can see they're not going to be happy with how it worked out this evening. But Blackbirds are an example. I know that as well, Volante Racing are pretty happy with how they finished as well. It's the best finish of the season so far. So yeah, it's been a really interesting race. As it's been different as well. It's been nothing like any previous race in the season. I think we owe that partially to the nature of Bathurst, the circuit, and of course we've had a fair few DNFs, which is to be expected around this circuit. And I think as well, you kind of got to give it to Omicron as well, because they did stick it out to the end despite suffering many trials and tribulations to get to that checkered flag.
Yeah, certainly an interesting race for some, but that is not all for this championship. In 4 weeks' time, we head to Suzuka, to Japan. We haven't been there for a few seasons at SimRacing.Club, so good to be back there. But we got another 3-hour race there, as I said, in 4 weeks' time. Then another 4 weeks after that, we go to the final race of the season, of the 8-race season. We're finishing at Spa-Francorchamps. Fairly recently added to our Factor 2, so that'll be a nice one to see. But that pretty much rounds it up here for the 3 hours of Bathurst. I've been Cameron Roger. Alongside me is Hugo Barrow, and we will see you next time.